I'm John Miller along with Joe Morgan, your Sunday night telecasters. A fabulous night for a ball game here in Baltimore, and they are excited here. The Orioles have won 4 in a row. Oakland's lost 6 in a row. But tonight they turn to their longtime stopper. He's back with the Athletics now, Dave Stewart. But he's struggling. He's only 2-4, Joe, and his earned run average is well above 7.
Well, this is the reason they brought Dave Stewart back to Oakland, to be the #1 pitcher on the staff, the stopper, to be able to stop long losing streaks, and that'll be his job tonight. But he'll be up against guys like Rafael Palmeiro, who is swinging the bat well and doing well. And yesterday, Cal Ripken Jr. hit a grand slam home run to key the Orioles' victory over the Oakland A's and send them down to their 6th loss in a row. So it'll be up to Dave Stewart to get him back.
Ripken now 87 games away from tying Lou Gehrig's consecutive game streak. Now, meanwhile, for the Orioles, Sid Fernandez, the longtime veteran, the former Met, he has not gone through the 5th inning as yet, and he may be on the line tonight. In fact, he may be out of the rotation, maybe off the ball club, unless he comes up with a good one tonight.
There is a lot of pressure on Sid Fernandez tonight. He has to make a good showing for the Baltimore Orioles. And he's going to go up against actually the best A's lineup, because there are better hitters from the right side, like Ruben Sierra. He hits better from the right side. Mark McGwire is on a tear. You've got Geronimo Barroa, who I think is probably the most underrated hitter in the American League. So he's got his work cut out for him tonight.
A couple of veterans trying to regain their lost form, Dave Stewart and Sid Fernandez, with a great ballpark and a big crowd is gathering. Stay tuned. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by Kellogg's Frosted Flakes, the cereal served in clubhouses of Major League Baseball. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Camden Yards in Baltimore. The Orioles and the Athletics, the final game of the series. Now, the Orioles need a victory to get back to within 7 of Boston. The Red Hot Red Sox won again today. And the Orioles, even with a 4-game winning streak, are still right at the moment 7.5 back. Meanwhile, in the West, Oakland with a 6-game losing streak, the only team below 500 over there now. However, they can gain a little ground in California. The Angels lost in New York today. In this series, a tight one here Friday, won by Baltimore. Rafael Palmeiro drove in both runs, and Kevin Brown was the winner, 2-1 Orioles. Curtis Goodwin made his Major League debut. More on him later. Yesterday, a 6-run 5th inning keyed by Cal Ripken's grand slam. The Orioles hit 3 homers in the inning. Mike Messina was the winner over Mike Harkey. And so the Athletics still looking for a win. Oakland, team batting average is last in the league. But for home runs and runs per game, the Athletics are toward the middle of the American League. Here is the batting order for Tony La Russa's Athletics tonight. Mike Bordick will hit leadoff. They've had a problem there with Ricky Henderson on the shelf. Geronimo Barroa, the DH, hitting 2nd. Everybody's moved up one of the orders. Sierra hitting 3rd in right field. McGwire cleanup at first base. Steinbach, who has worn the Orioles out this year, the catcher. Brent Gates at 2nd base, hitting 6th. Scott Brocious, who homered yesterday, at 3rd base. Tom Paquette is in left field, hitting 8th. And Andy Tomberlin is in center field, hitting 9th. Stan Javier also hobbled right now with an injury. And on the mound for the Orioles, Sid Fernandez. He's lost 45 pounds since last season, but he has not been able to win. And you see those numbers right there. A lot of hits allowed, and look at all of those walks in only 18 and a third innings. He has not made it through the 5th inning in any start yet.
Well, John, the new streamline, Sid Fernandez has not pitched very well. And we'll take a look at his pitch grips. He throws a 4-seam fastball, which is his best pitch, and that's his curveball grip. And he also has a good changeup that he'll throw occasionally. That's almost the circle change, not quite, but a very good changeup. But his riding fastball is what's his best pitch. Take a look at the defense. They have a very speedy outfield. Hammonds, Goodwin, and Anderson in the outfield, and obviously the constant on the infield is Cal Ripken Jr. And you see won 2 Gold Gloves, 91 and 92.
Time to play ball now. Here is Mike Bordick going to stand in for the Athletics. Bordick is hitting .242, no home runs, and 4 runs batted in. He's on the disabled list for a while, so he's only played about half of the Athletics games up till now. Right-handed hitter in that wide open stance, and the first pitch of the game. Fastball in there for a called strike, and we are underway.
And the key for Fernandez, John, is to get out in front, to throw strikes. If he falls behind, he will really struggle. And a little bit too high. 1 ball, 1 strike. Fernandez has been working
very slowly in his game. He's been throwing a lot of pitches, going to a lot of deep counts, a lot of walks, a lot of base runners. And Mike Flanagan, the new Baltimore pitching coach, has been trying to get Sid to speed up out there, working a little more quickly. He thinks that it hurts him, all the downtime between pitches.
Well, you can't overthink, John, if you're standing on the mound. And that's the only reason that you take a lot of time is to try to think about what you're going to do with the next pitch. And sometimes you do overthink out there instead of just getting the ball, getting the sign, and throwing it.
2-1 the count to Bordick. That one is hit well to left field. Way back there. Anderson back. It's gone. The first home run of the year from Mike Bordick. 1-0 for Oakland, just like that. And for Sid Fernandez, that is the 5th home run allowed in only 18 of the 3rd innings.
Well, John, things do not bode well for Sid because one of his effective pitches is the high fastball. But if he doesn't have enough velocity on it and gets it up, he's going to get hammered, and that's what happens here. This is a high fastball. Well, it's not as high as I thought, actually. It's about belt high. And Bordick jumps all over it and hits it out. Well, maybe it's not as bad as I thought because Sid's best pitch is that high fastball around the letters.
Now, here is Geronimo Berroa, who is a guy you expect to hit some home runs. There's Phil Regan, the new Orioles manager, longtime major league pitcher, and his first go-around as a big league manager, and he just cannot figure out how to get Sid Fernandez going. Berroa lifts a high foul into the upper deck off to the right. Berroa is hitting .297 with 8 home runs and 21 driven in. By the way, how unusual is it for Bordick to homer? That's his 9th major league homer. It is 1,753rd major league at bat. It doesn't happen often. And that pop up off to the right. Nopes the catcher over, but it's back into the crowd. 1 ball and 2 strikes. You see Fernandez averaging only 3 2/3 innings per start this year. Only Pat Mahomes of the Twins in all of Major League Baseball has averaged fewer innings. At the beginning of the year, you could understand it. Guys were not yet ready to go deep into ball games. As Mike Bordick savoring that first home run of 1995. But for Sid, I mean, he just has not been able to go deep into a game at all. 1 ball and 2 strikes. The count to Berroa. Sierra is on deck. Up and away. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
He doesn't seem to have the same pop that I've, seen in the past on his fastball. The high fastball, again, was what he would get a lot of strikeouts on, hitters chasing.
Trying to curve him, and that one just kind of slipped right out of his hand. 3-2 now. And that's a foul. Berroa a little bit late on that fastball. 3-2 the count to Berroa. Now, this Oakland club has some pop. In their last road trip, they averaged almost 8 runs per game. That's when they really got it going after a fairly slow start.
And, of course, they had Ricky Henderson in that lineup, and he was doing well leading off, and everyone else was picking up their RBIs.
High in the air, fairly deep right, circling around is Hammonds, now right next to the line where he makes the catch. He went back to that scoreboard and then had to circle back in to grab it. It's a real friendly home run porch out there in right field, measuring only 318 feet to the right field corner. Here's the look at Camden Yards from that right field corner. And as you see out there in left field, some empty seats here tonight. This has not been an automatic sellout this year for the first time in the relatively young history of this ballpark, although they do lead the American League in average attendance. Had 45,000 here yesterday, but I doubt that they'll hit 40 tonight. Ruben Sierra, changeup, misses ball 1. Now Sierra is hitting .270, 6 homers, 21 batted in. As a right-handed hitter, though, he's hitting .385.
He is a much better hitter from the right side. He does most of the things. He does things more fundamentally correct from the right side than he does the left side. He will pick the leg up, swing at a lot of bad pitches from the left side, but from his right side, he's a little more patient. Still doesn't get a lot of walks, but he's a little more patient, and he gets pretty good pitches to hit.
You can see why he didn't get a lot of walks that last pitch. was ball 2 down around his ankles, and he chased it. 1-1 the count.
Sierra has had the philosophy, John, that he's up there to hit and not walk, and the Oakland A's have tried to instill in him the fact that if he takes a few more walks, they will score more runs. You know, they've tried to get him to improve his on-base average, which has become a big thing in Oakland.
2-1. Sierra walks away from the plate. Tony La Russa, he had it out with Sierra in the papers earlier this week. Sierra made comments critical of general manager Sandy Alderson, and Tony La Russa lashed out at his own player in the newspapers. And it was rather uncharacteristic of La Russa, and he admitted as much. Here's what he said. He said, every time he opens his mouth, he makes a fool of himself. You try to protect guys, shade the truth a bit, but there's a term players use, VI, when a player starts believing fantasy. He's a village idiot.
I have a lot of respect for Tony La Russa, but that surprises me that he would do that, you know, publicly. I can see him doing it in private or personally, but I was a little surprised. So it basically tells you how upset Tony was over what happened between Sandy Alderson and Ruben Sierra.
Now Mark McGwire comes up. Sierra, hey, got a walk.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. He got a walk in a game just before Steinbach hit the grand slam.
It was 11 days ago in Oakland.
And I guess Sandy Alderson congratulated him and told him that was good. And I guess that's basically how this brouhaha started. But in any effect,
La Russa's had a couple of meetings with Sierra. He pulled him out of the lineup a couple of times. They've had something going between them for a while this year. And that was sort of the latest incident. There's Carney Lansford alongside La Russa. And of course, Carney epitomized what La Russa likes to see in a ball player, a guy who just comes out ready to play every day and plays hard.
But the funny thing, Carney Lansford didn't walk very much either, John. That's really weird. But I think that Ruben is starting to understand that an on-base average is helpful to the ball club, and I think he's starting to understand that.
I think that was one thing they were upset about with Ruben, but I think that they felt also that he wasn't always playing full out, always playing hard. And I think, you know, that was sort of an underlying aspect of it as well. 1-2 to Mark McGwire. Now you can say all you want about Sierra and this guy and that guy, but when McGwire's in there and hitting his home runs as he has been this year, a lot of things kind of fall together for this Oakland club. Been a while though since he last hit one. McGwire stunk on 11 homers with a 31 batted in.
When they were on the road trip you mentioned over in Kansas City especially, you could see the fact that McGwire was in there really took the pressure off everyone else in the lineup.
Struck him out. The foul tip held by Noakes.
And as I said earlier, his best pitch is his high fastball, and most teams try to pitch McGwire up anyway, but you'll get a good look at Sid Fernandez's fastball here. This is the high fastball, the riding fastball, the four-seam fastball that kind of rides up a little bit, and McGwire can't catch up with it.
So McGwire now with only 4 hits in his last 27 at-bats, and he has not homered since May the 25th when he hit one against the Orioles at the Coliseum in Oakland. Now here is Terry Steinbach. Steinbach off to a great start, driving in runs. He has 26 runs batted in with 6 homers and a .288 average. And he had that incredible stretch there, Joe, in the last homestand where 3 straight days he hit a crucial late inning homer with his club trailing.
When you watch Steinbach, there's nothing special about his batting stance. There's nothing special about his hitting. But you look up at the end of the year, and he's had a solid year. He will drive in runs for you. He will get a lot of key base hits. He's just a very solid offensive player as well as defensive player.
1-0 strikes to Steinbach. 1 run in for Oakland. And that was off the glove of Noakes. And Sierra held on at first base. 2-0.
When you're facing, a pitcher like Fernandez, I think as a base runner, you have to always be alert because he's kind of all over the place. I mean, he'll miss up and away, he'll miss down and in. And be ready if the ball does bounce away from the catcher.
Matt Noakes has not had any success at all throwing out would-be base stealers this year. He's the backup catcher for the Orioles behind Chris Hoyles. Good fastball there. We got it on our jugs gun, 88 miles an hour. 2-1 the count. Foul tip by Steinbach. Brent Gates on deck. He would be next. The Athletics just the beginning of a long East Coast swing and a tough one. They go to New York and then to Boston after this. There goes Sierra. Change up outside. He's out. Barbary took the throw. Sierra's going to go chase Jim Evans and argue on that one. That ends the inning. And here comes La Russa out as well. So a little arguing going on. Baltimore coming up, trailing 1-0. 1, Orioles nothing as we go to the last of the first here in Baltimore. Controversial caller at second base. The arguing is over. Brett Barbary takes the throw, and we get a real good look at it here in slow motion.
And you'll see Sierra's right foot hits the bag. He hasn't been tagged yet. And right there, he's hit on the knee, and his foot is already bent, meaning he has already gone past the bag.
So Sierra called out on the play. And now we look at the Orioles. The Orioles not very strong in average. Their runs per game also well down in the robust world of the American League this year. He can score a lot of runs to be among the leaders in the American League right now. Curtis Goodwin, the exciting rookie, made his major league debut Friday in center field. Brady Anderson having a fine season in left field. Rafael Palmeiro red hot. He's at first. Cal Ripken with a grand slam yesterday at short. Harold Baines, the reliable left-handed swinger, the DH. Jeffrey Hammonds recently back from the minors. He's been hot. Matt Noakes just can't buy a hit right now. Jeff Manto, lately the regular third baseman for the Orioles and swinging a hot bat. And Brett Barbary, the former Marlin, is the second baseman hitting ninth. On the hill for Oakland, trying to be the stopper, as he's been so many times before, Dave Stewart. And you see the numbers are not very good.
Well, he has struggled. He's had a couple of... He started off poorly. He got really beat up on the opening night, and then he bounced back a little bit, and then he lost last week. But his real problem has been, in the last couple of starts, has been his groin. He's had a groin pull in his right leg, and that's been hindering his push off the mound, which has really bothered him the last couple of starts.
Dave Stewart, 38 years of age, facing the rookie, Curtis Goodwin, who's from the Oakland area. Shows bunt, takes. Ball one outside.
It's interesting you mentioned he's from the Oakland area. Actually, he's a friend of my daughter's. But his mother and Ricky Henderson's mother are watching the game together tonight in Oakland.
That's foul down the left field line. Well, he finally got to talk to Ricky tonight before the ball game. And he grew up an A's fan. He used to go from San Leandro over to the ballpark. And of course, Ricky Henderson was the guy that he tried to pattern himself after.
I laughed because he said it's not the first time he actually met Ricky. It's the second time. He said the first time Ricky was busting through a crowd and pushed him aside and kept going.
Out of my way, kid.
Yeah.
Goodwin. 2-1 the count to Goodwin. And that's ball 3. 3-1. I said, so Ricky Henderson was the guy you really looked up to. Was there anybody else? He says, oh, man, there was nobody else. Just Ricky.
It's Ricky.
3-1 the count. Right in there from Stewart. Full count now to Goodwin, and I think the Orioles are happy to see this. Goodwin did not have a real high on-base average in the minor league. He's kind of a free swinger up there. They like to be a little more patient. Right through the middle. And through. Gates couldn't quite get it. So Goodwin has yet another hit. He's had 2 hits in each of his first 2 major league games. And he's got one already here, and we'll see if he tries to steal right away.
Well, let's take a look at the Oakland A's defense. Interesting, Tomlin in center field instead of Javier, but I think the real key to their defense so far this season has been Scott Brocious at third base. He has played very, very well defensively. And they've had a lot of injuries on their infield, but he's been the one constant plus for their infield.
Well, here's Brady Anderson now. He has been the Orioles leadoff man, and a good one. And Brady has averaged nearly 1 run scored per game played this year. And he takes a called strike. With Goodwin here now, they're trying him in the leadoff spot, at least against the right-handed pitchers. And this is the third straight game that Goodwin has led off in the first inning with a single.
John, I think you have to remember where Phil Reagan came from. He's been watching Kenny Lofton, and he would like to have that type of a leadoff hitter, that type of a player. And Brady Anderson, as good as he is, doesn't fit that mold. But he's looking for a guy like Goodwin. He feels like he can give him the defense in center field and be the quick base runner, steal 40, 50, maybe even 60 bases a year. So that's, I think, the reason they made the switch. But I also think it's more difficult to hit second than it is first. So I think it's tougher for Brady to adjust the second spot than it is for Goodwin to lead off.
Well, he'll be asked occasionally to take a pitch to let Goodwin steal, and he did so the very first night when Goodwin led off with a single on a 2-0 count. Goodwin took off, and Brady took the fastball, which was right through the middle.
Well, that's the difficult part, John, not knowing when you should take and when you shouldn't, not knowing all the time when the runner's going to go.
0-1 to Brady Anderson. And the fork ball misses. 1 ball, 1 strike. We're in the first inning. From Camden Yards, this is John Miller along with Joe Morgan. Sunday Night Baseball. Oakland ahead 1-0. Mike Bordick, Oakland's leadoff man, led off the game with a home run against Sid Fernandez. Now we're in the last of the first. Goodwin with a single to center is aboard. He has stolen a base in each of the first 2 games of his young major league career. McGuire on the bag with him. Popped up by Brady. Foul ground. Steinbach takes it. Well, Brady Anderson has fouled out to the catcher. 1 gone, and now Rafael Palmeiro coming up. Anderson has seen his batting average plummet the last 10 days or so. He was well up over 300. But he continues to somehow get on base and score a lot of runs. Here's Palmeiro, 315, 8 home runs, 29 driven in. And interestingly enough, Palmeiro last year had 23 homers before the strike. But most of them were with the bases empty, Joe. Now this year, all but 1 of his home runs have had somebody on base. He's hit well in the clutch. Every at-bat he's had with somebody in scoring position in this series, he's delivered a run.
Well, Rafael Palmeiro is one of the real fine hitters in Major League Baseball in that he knows how to hit in every situation. He knows when he should go for the extra base hit. He knows when he can just hit a line drive to left field to drive in a run. He does not overswing. He's just a beautiful hitter.
Like you saw that note, all of his home runs have been with somebody on base. There goes Goodwin. Steinbach's throw. He's out. So Goodwin thrown out trying to steal. Steinbach with that quick release a la the late Thurman Munson.
Well, he definitely got rid of this ball very quickly. Goodwin thought he was in there because the tag was high. He thought his feet were in. We'll take a look. That's an average jump, not a great jump. Steinbach comes up and fires a strike. And the tag is made there. It's by Bordick.
So 2 down, nobody on. The pitch to Palmeiro. Good fastball. We got that at 92 miles an hour in the Jug's gun. So Goodwin thrown out trying to steal. 1 ball, 1 strike. Meanwhile, the count to Palmeiro. 1-0 Oakland, 2 down. That's a foul out of play off to the left. Tony La Russa was saying about Stewart that his stuff in his last start against Boston was as good as it's ever been. I mean, throwing hard, good breaking stuff, good fork balls. But he had no command in that game. He was knocked out early against the Red Sox.
Well, he walked 5 hitters. And anytime Stewart walks a lot of hitters, you know something is wrong. He usually walks 2 or 3 hitters a ball game, but he was up around 5, and he only pitched like 4 innings.
You can see how reliable he was there for the 4-year period. He won 20 or more in each of those 4 years. Struck him out with the high heat, and that's the inning. Oakland relying on Stewart to get the win tonight. He's ahead after 1. Sunday Night Baseball from Baltimore. One of the features here at Camden Yards is Boog's Barbecue. The former Oriole great first baseman Boog Powell got a little barbecue stand out there. It's a very popular spot out on Utah Street, out beyond the big scoreboard and the bleachers out there. Utah Street, now part of the ballpark proper, as a promenade. It looks like the Midway at the Carnival. every night that there's a ball game here in Baltimore. Terry Steinbach, the hitter, taking ball one from Sid Fernandez. Steinbach hitting .288, 6 homers, 26 driven in. He was at the plate when Sierra was thrown out trying to steal to end the first inning, and he fouls this one away. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Called out.
Called out, attempting to steal. Brent Gates will follow, and then Scott Brocious. Sid Fernandez threw 25 pitches in the first inning. Always seems to have that real high pitch total. Good curveball in there for a strike.
That was a beautiful curveball.
Ruben Sierra on the right, Ricky Henderson in the middle there. Stan Javier in the background. Yeah. Ricky has not played for, what, 8 or 9 days now. May go on the disabled list tomorrow. Curveball outside. He did play catch tonight before the game. La Russa said that's the first time he's played catch. He's got problems with his left shoulder. That's his throwing shoulder.
Well, he hurt himself with a head-first dive. And I talked to him for a while tonight, and I made a suggestion to him that he get a shot in his shoulder, and he's thinking about it, so he may get a shot tomorrow to see how it responds.
2-2 the count to
Not that I'm
Steinbach.
a doctor or anything. I'm just telling him some of the things that worked when I played. I tried it.
Actually, I've had this little pain in my lower back. What would you advise for that, Joe?
Actually, they'd been trying to get Ricky to take a shot, and he was saying that he was trying to against it. He thought maybe it would, you know, get well with a little rest, but it hasn't. So I suggested that he go ahead and try it, and I think he will, because the A's need him in the lineup.
2-2 the count to Steinbach. And he struck him out with a fastball. 1 out. Let's go now for an update to Carl Ravitch.
John, thanks very much. In our ESPN Sunday Night Baseball studios, one other game going on right now in Florida. Cubs and Marlins. Sammy Sosa having a good season. Now in the left field line it goes. Knocks in Ray Sanchez. Came off Chris Hammond. Ozzie Timmons later knocked Sosa in. Also knocked Hammond out of the game. Jeremy Hernandez now in for Florida. It's 4-2. Back to you.
Thanks, Carl. So we'll try to keep you updated on that one. The Cubs, what a start they're having. A curveball for a strike from Sid Fernandez to that man, Brent Gates. Gates out of the University of Minnesota. Just like his predecessor in the lineup, Terry Steinbach. But Gates is off to a terrible start, hitting only 182. Another curveball, strike 2 call. Well, Joe, in the first inning, I don't remember Sid getting one of those over. He didn't seem to have the curve in the first.
No, he didn't. But Johnny started him off with a 91. He struck Steinbach out with a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, which says that he's loose now. And now he comes with 2 good breaking balls to Gates.
1-2. You know, in the Orioles scheme of things, I mean, they're looking at Fernandez to be the 4th starter. He didn't have to be the ace or even the 2 or 3 starter. And of course, he's always pitched well enough to be a good 4th starter on anybody's team. But he just has not been adequate so far. Strike 3 with a fastball. 3 consecutive strikeouts for Sid Fernandez.
And that one was clocked at 90 miles an hour. The one before to Steinbach at 91. So Sid's bringing it a little bit. You see, he hides the ball a little bit. He steps, and then he releases the ball. But that's good mechanics there because he stays down. He bends his back. Good delivery there by Sid Fernandez.
Here now is Scott Brocious, hitting .290. Got 2 homers, 9 driven in. Very unusual looking stance there. It's kind of the Jeff Bagwell stance. And it's apparently working better for Brocious than it is for Bagwell these days.
Yeah, Jeff has been struggling, although his last couple of days he's been swinging the bat a little better.
Good fastball. Well, this is a whole different Sid Fernandez now. This looks like vintage Sid Fernandez.
We have had some games, John, you know, we broadcast where Sid has been excellent with his fastball, strikeout ratio, and he's pitched well.
1 ball, 1 strike. Another fastball, 89 miles an hour that time. 1 ball, 2 strikes now to Brocious. 2 down, nobody on. Second inning, Oakland ahead 1-0. You see Sid, 104 wins in the big leagues, but I think that, you know, Sid has had a lot of ball games where he pitched well for 6 innings, 6 1/3, 7, and never got a win. Thrown so many pitches, they had to get him out of there. He's had some impressive numbers in a lot of categories other than wins. Curveball misses. Almost hit Brocious in the foot. 2-2 the count. I mean, for years he was one of the toughest pitchers to hit in the National League. I mean, you could measure it. I mean, literally always had one of the lowest hits allowed per innings pitch ratios in all of baseball. Just missing outside. The appeal denied by John Hirschbeck, the first base umpire, on the check swing. Full count, 3-2. Craig Paquette is on deck. 1-0 Oakland ahead, second inning. And foul back and out of play. Still 3 balls, 2 strikes to Brocious. Meanwhile, out there on Utah Street, a wedding party going on. They just got married today. And where are they?
Camden Yards.
Yeah. Strike 3 call. Fernandez strikes out the side. Brocious didn't like it. That's also 4 straight strikeouts for Sid. Cal Ripken will be coming up for the Orioles. Oakland ahead 1-0. Sunday Night Baseball from Baltimore. When you're in Baltimore, you see Cal Ripken. That's a given. And Cal Ripken approaching the great record of Lou Gehrig. We talked to Cal about his place in baseball history.
I have such a strong feeling about the game itself. I have difficulty placing myself in the importance of the game. I think the game in itself, you know, the strategies, the things that happen on the field, the small, subtle things that happen in the field, the things that happen on the daily grind, I think it's just a great game. Sometimes the pace gets to be a little slow, but I think it's just a great game that no one person, you know, is going to have that big of an impact on the game. There are going to be players that keep coming through, but the game is going to last.
Cal Ripken, and that's his perpetual line about chasing Gehrig's consecutive game streak as he faces Dave Stewart here and takes ball 1 inside, which is basically that it's nothing more than just wanting to be considered reliable and the guy who can go out there and play every day. That's all he set out to do, and that's all he has done. Cal Ripken yesterday hit a grand slam here to blow open a ball game with Oakland. He's hitting .292. And that's a called strike. 1 ball, 1 strike. 4 homers, 20 batted in for Ripken this year. He's hit more home runs than any shortstop in Major League history, past Ernie Banks in that category last year. Of course, Ernie went on to hit a couple hundred more homers as a first baseman with the Chicago Cubs.
But I think that's quite an accomplishment past Ernie Banks as a shortstop, because Ernie Banks was one of the great hitting shortstops in the history of the game when he played that position.
Getting a late break was the center fielder Tomlin, and it falls in. Paquette over to pick it up. Tomlin broke back toward left center, thinking Ripken had hit it well. So Cal dunks one in, and that's the Orioles' second hit.
Well, when we were doing the defense, I mentioned the fact it was interesting that they had the left-handed hitting Tomlin in center field. As you see Stewart throwing the fork ball, Ripken hits it off the end of the bat, and you see right there, you could see that Tomlin was started back instead of in. Stan Javier has been playing center field, but he hasn't been hitting well, and they decided they were going to put Tomlin in there tonight.
Javier, an excellent center fielder, too. Here's Baines. Called strike on the outside. Harold Baines. He's a native of Maryland. Of course, played many years with the Chicago White Sox and was probably the best player on those White Sox teams year in and year out. Briefly in Texas. Then he went to Oakland. There were some outstanding Oakland clubs. Now in Baltimore, here in his home state, he takes the ball from Stewart. 1 ball, 1 strike. Baines, just a great professional hitter. He has terrible knee problems. He's had numerous surgeries on each of his knees, but refuses to complain about any bad luck in that regard. Baines, in fact, says, hey, if I'd never had any problems with my knees, maybe I'd already be out of the game. Or maybe I'd be too cocky and I wouldn't have appreciated it. He says, as it is, I have to work real hard every day just to get ready to play. He says, it makes me appreciate the game. In front of Paquette, base hit. Ripken will stop at second base. That's a familiar sight. Baines taking that outside pitch, hitting it hard the other way.
That shows the intelligence of Baines as a hitter. and compare that to Stewart as a pitcher. He does not want him to pull the ball in the hole, so he stays away. Baines knows that he doesn't want him to pull the ball, so he just goes with him and lines it to left field. Good hitting there by Baines. Actually good pitching by Stewart. Someone else may have tried to pull that ball, and he hit the ground ball that Stewart was looking for.
Now
so
Jeffrey
saw two professional guys at work there. Smart.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Jeffrey Hammonds, 2 men on, nobody out. He squares the bunt and bunts it foul. And again, not the traditional sacrifice bunt approach that time, as he was on the move as he bunted at that one, like you would be if you were bunting for a base hit.
John, if you have speed, and Hammonds does, most of your speed, I don't believe that you should square around. That's like a give up. Go ahead and bunt and put a little pressure on the defense. Paul Richards, who was a great former general manager at Baltimore, pushed that theory. Why should you just square around and give up the out if you can run? Now, for guys who do not run, you square around and drop the bunt down. But if you can run a little bit, go ahead and try to beat it out and sacrifice at the same time. You put a little more pressure on the defense.
In that last pitch, now Hammonds gave no indication of the bunt. He's had another look at Steve Boros, his third base coach. Oakland ahead 1-0. Second inning. Ripken at second. Baines at first. Nobody out. And the bunt again and again foul. So it is 1 ball and 2 strikes. Hammonds out of Stanford. They think that he has it and that he could be a star, but he's had a lot of injury problems. He's hitting .292, 3 homers, 9 batted in. He went down to the minor leagues for about a 10-day period to try and get things back together. He had knee surgery last year, and he was wearing a big brace on his knee and was not running well. And they just thought maybe there was a psychological block that he was having, not really wanting to test the knee full out. So they said, you go down there when everything's fine, then we'll bring you back. And you see he's still wearing the little brace on the knee, but he went down there. His speed improved. He started diving for balls, sliding, breaking up double plays. He looked like the old Jeffrey Hammonds, so they brought him back, and that's what they've seen since he came back.
Well, maybe that minor league ball will make you slide a little harder, dive a little bit.
He was not happy about going down, I'll tell you that. 1-2 the count. From a fastball down in there, missed with it. 2-2 now to Jeffrey Hammonds. He knows all about Dave Stewart. He used to see the Athletics play when he was in college out there in the Bay Area at Stanford. Jeffrey Hammonds, he's a very likable fellow. Very loquacious pitch. Struck him out. And Stu stayed with the hard stuff there. Got him.
I was about to say, I'm not really seeing a pattern in Dave Stewart. Usually a pitcher will get in a rhythm and you know what he's trying to do. Dave really hadn't established a pattern, but he threw a fastball down and in, and then he comes back with the high fastball in. So maybe he was trying to throw the other one up and in as well, and he just missed his target. So if he can get the fastball up with 2 strikes, he will definitely be able to handle most of the right-handed hitters.
And Hammonds, who was asked to move the runners up, failed to do so. So that's a big strikeout for Stewart. Here now is Matt Noakes. Veteran left-handed hitter. Always been a pretty good pull hitter. But the little he's played this year, he has not hit at all. Noakes with 2 hits in 32 at-bats. Certainly has the stroke to reach that short right field porch here at Camden Yards. 1-0 Oakland ahead. And there's a high drive. He may have done it. Yes, sir. Way back. Look out. Boog's Barbecue. A 3-run shot for Matt Noakes. Second home run of the year for Matt Noakes, and that was a shot. Cleared the bleachers out there. And that's what the Orioles were hoping to see when they acquired Matt Noakes.
There was no doubt about the pitch and about the ball after it was hit. It looks like it was a fastball in the middle of the plate. And it stays right there, and he drives it over the wall. It was actually a split finger or a fork ball.
Now here is Jeff Manto. And that's too low. Manto, a career minor leaguer. And all of a sudden in the major leagues, is an everyday player, at least for now. And he's justified it, hitting .294. Matt Noakes, a 3-run shot. It's just what the Orioles got him to do. And they brought up a third catcher for the minor leagues on Friday because they felt they weren't getting Noakes enough at bats. Boyles, the regular catcher, plays almost every day, and they're afraid to use Noakes in other roles because he was the only other catcher. 3-1, the Orioles out in front. Jeff Manto, his 11th year in pro ball. And that's going to go foul down the right field line. Joe, he's one of these guys that, I mean, he has worked and worked and worked,
right,
trying to make it to the show, and now at 30 years of age, he's gotten a shot, and they stuck him in there. Leo Gomez, the third baseman, was slumping, and Manto got hot right away. It was his shot, and he has made the most of it. Can't get him out of there right now. Struck him out looking. The fastball. Now, is he looking for fork ball there, or is he fooled on that pitch?
I think he was looking for a fork ball. See, what you have to do with a pitcher like Stewart is most of his fastballs are going to be up. When the ball is down, it's basically a fastball that starts in the strike zone and sinks out. That one just doesn't sink. And Manto is protecting against that ball going down and out of the strike zone, and it did not.
Now Brett Barbery, former National Leaguer, hitting .268, taking ball 1.
See, most of Stewart's fastballs will be up. That one was down, which is very unusual. Now, you watch him, most of the fastballs will be around the belt and above. Things below that are usually fork balls.
It's a foul out of play. 1 ball, 1 strike to Barbery. 3 runs in, and Tony La Russa's Athletics down 3-1 and riding a 6-game losing streak. Matt Noakes, former Yankee, former Tiger. That's what Matt Noakes does. I mean, that's why he's still in the big leagues. He's never been noted as a very good defensive catcher. And a catcher, he's a great left-handed pull hitter. And that's a foul out of play by Barbery. 2-2 the count to Barbery. 2 down, nobody on in the 2nd inning from Baltimore. Barbery, a guy who loves to surf. That's how he stays in shape in the offseason, just like you and me, Joe.
Yeah.
Looking for that perfect ride.
Yeah, all right.
Looking for the pipeline. And he struck him out looking. I can't wait till you and I get to Makaha this winter. Matt Noakes' 3-run shot has turned the game around, and now Baltimore is leading 3-1 after 2.
Back on Sunday Night Baseball, the MCI proof positive play of the day. Bottom of the 9th, the Indians had rallied from an 8-0 deficit. It's 8-7, and Paul Sorrento turns around a Darren Hall pitch. A 2-run shot, his 12th. Tribe win 9-8, and John and Joe, they are 24-10.
Incredible, the Cleveland Indians. What a story. They are unbelievable. Here, 3-1 Orioles, Sunday Night Baseball. Sid Fernandez has struck out the last 4 hitters that he has faced, starting with McGuire in the 1st inning.
There's a good high fastball from Sid. And that's Steinbach, another good fastball. Good fastball to Gates and to Brocious. So he has really lightened it up with his fastball.
Now Craig Paquette will try and do something with Sid. All of a sudden, Sid has a lead. And truly, nobody has said anything about this one way or the other, but reading between the lines as to what has been said about Sid, kind of close to the best guarded comments.
Right. I can imagine what you're
Sid
going to say.
may well be pitching, not just maybe for his place in the rotation to maintain that, but maybe to stay in the big leagues, at least with the Orioles here tonight. It's time for him to have a strong outing. He has not had one or even close to one so far in 5 previous starts. 1 ball, 1 strike, especially for a club that's 7 games out of first.
Right.
If it's just not going to happen for Sid soon, then they've got to try something else. And that's one of the problems the Orioles had. They were off to an 11-18 start, and only 2 of their starting pitchers were winning. Kevin Brown and Mike Messina. Even Ben McDonald did not win a ball game until last Wednesday. Sid has not won yet. Arthur Rhodes won 1, and now he's back in the minor leagues. He's got that good fastball, and Oakland's not able to catch up with it. Foul tip there. Strike 2 to Paquette. That's Craig Paquette. I apparently called him Tom Paquette. you see the Orioles, how the Messina Brown combine has been, and the other starters not even close. Greg, I can't call him Tom Paquette, apparently.
He used to play for Kansas City,
Tom
didn't he?
Paquette.
Yeah, he used to play for Kansas City.
Pretty good left-handed hitter.
Yeah.
But no relation to Craig Paquette. There's Utah Street, the corridor out there between the old B&O warehouse and the ballpark itself, and you see it. It looks like a carnival midway out there.
Well, those people who are walking are missing a good ball game.
They're having some Boob's barbecue. And of course, the field is sunken below that level, below street level. You can look right in. Certainly, a few points. There's another strikeout. 5 in a row for Sid Fernandez.
And this is the first one that comes on a breaking ball. The other ones were all good fastballs from Sid. And this is his curveball. And you see he gets Paquette on the swing.
One down here is Andy Tomberlin, the only left-handed hitter in the batting order against the left-hander Sid Fernandez. Tomberlin has done well. He's got 4 homers and only 51 at-bats, hitting .235. There's the big sweeper and outside for ball 1. 1 out, nobody on. 3rd inning. The Orioles 3, the Athletics 1. Leadoff man Mike Bordick is on deck. That's a called strike over the outside. 1 ball and 1 strike. That Cleveland game today, Joe, we showed the highlight there. 9-8. They were behind 8-0 in the 3rd inning. And David Cone was pitching. I mean, was that a lock or what?
We would think so.
Toronto had 8-0. David Cone on the hill. And Cleveland got 1 in the 3rd, 2 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th. That was the end of David Cone. They got 6 runs and 13 hits against him in 5 2/3 innings. I mean, against Dave. You can probably count the number of games he's had that done against him on one hand. 13 hits against Cone. 1-2 the count to Tomberlin. Well, he put it in play, the first Oakland player to do that since Berroa in the 1st inning. Brady Anderson handles it easily in shallow left, out number 2. That ends the run of 5 consecutive strikeouts for Sid Fernandez. 2 down, and Mike Bordick, the leadoff man, will come up now. Bordick hit a home run to start the game. Cleveland has the best record in the American League now. In fact, I believe in the majors.
Yes.
Because the Phillies lost again today.
The Phillies have lost 3 in a row. At least they lost 3 in a row to the Giants over the weekend.
Cleveland now 24-10. Phillies were beaten out in San Francisco 4-0. The Giants swept them. And the Phillies scored 2 runs in the 3 games, which is pretty impressive considering the Giants are not supposed to have any pitching left. Dusty Baker put the staff together somehow. They're doing well. The Giants lead the National League West. 1 ball, 1 strike to Mike Bordick. Slow curve missing. You know, one other thing when we're talking about Cleveland, we're going to see Cleveland in 2 weeks now. I think you should mark that date down. June 18th will be in Cleveland. We'll get a first-hand look at that offensive machine. Lofton, Baerga, Bell, Murray, Tomey, Sorrento. 2-2 now to Bordick.
By the time we get there, Eddie Murray may be closing in on 3,000. I mean, you have 2 weeks. He may get 28 hits in 2 weeks.
He got 3 today.
So I think he needs about 24.
May get him by Friday.
Yeah.
He's hitting .341. He hit one out of the park today. It's inside. In fact, he kind of helped fuel that comeback against Cone with a 2-run homer. Paul Sorrento's home run today was his 12th. He's got 30 RBIs. And he doesn't even play every day. 3-2 the count. Popped up. Noakes up the line. Down the line is Manto, who calls him off. And Oakland goes down in order again. 3-1 Baltimore. Barbary made the last out. Top of the order coming. Goodwin will move. The ballpark is right down in the inner city. Just 3 or 4 blocks from the Baltimore's fabled Inner Harbor area. Although this area itself, which is the old rail yards, hence the name Camden Yards, And it had really fallen into disrepair, this area. This was just kind of a dead part of town, and it has changed this whole area, putting the ballpark in here, and changed the surrounding area, too. Long after this game tonight, you could walk from this ballpark within 10, 12 block area. The people on the streets, the bars and restaurants have things set up out on the sidewalk. You see people kind of partying out there deep into the night after every home game here in Baltimore. It's been a magnet to attract people to the downtown area and has revitalized this area to a great extent. 2-0 to Palmero.
John, I admired the ballpark from the booth and from being down on the field, and I thought it was a very beautiful ballpark. But Friday when I was here, I had a chance to walk through the stands, walk down and around, and it is a magnificent ballpark. I mean, it's really user-friendly. It's built really for the fans, and it's great. And I talked to Frank Robinson, the assistant general manager and Hall of Famer from the Orioles, and he was telling me that the input to build this stadium came from just about all the people in this city, all walks of life. They talked to a lot of different people about what they would like in the ballpark and how they would like it constructed, and they followed through on it.
Little looper, shallow left, Paquette in a hurry, and he's got it. So Palmero is gone again. He's 0 for 2. 3-1 for the Orioles after 3. Berroa, Sierra, McGuire coming up, the big guns. We're in downtown Baltimore. The Orioles 3, the Athletics 1. It's the old Camden Station, refurbished as part of the ballpark area here. And there, out beyond left field in downtown, is the old Bromo Seltzer Tower, built in 1911. Built to copy the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, Italy, in steel and brick. And it's been a popular landmark here in Baltimore all those years since. Kind of had its own renaissance since the ballpark was built. Many people seeing it for the first time. And they've often wondered about it. Used to have a big, giant bottle of Bromo Seltzer on top of that tower. Strike 2 to Berroa, and we're watching Sid Fernandez, speaking of a renaissance, maybe resurrecting his career. He needs to. And so far, he's been awfully strong.
Well, the real impressive thing is his control.
0-2 now to Berroa. He flied out to right his first time. Berroa has not been hitting in this series. Berroa, in fact, is hitless for the series now, 0 for 9. Curtis Goodwin over into right center. That is out number 1. Coming up next Sunday, Sunday Night Baseball will visit the ballpark in Arlington. Frank Thomas, the big hurt, the White Sox and their new manager will take on the Texas Rangers. Juan Gonzalez is back. The White Sox and Rangers, and the Rangers played real well early on, primarily because of some strong starting pitching led by Kenny Rogers. Look what he's done the last 5 starts. 5-0, .5 ERA. He had a 39-inning scoreless streak going. Kenny Rogers, that's next Sunday on ESPN. I hope you'll join us. Here is Ruben Sierra. He walked his first time. Right field, fairly deep. Evans is under it, though. And that is out number 2. Anytime there's a ball hit to that part of the ballpark, with that big scoreboard in right, people kind of hold their breath here at Camden Yards.
Here's Mark McGuire, John. I mean, he has some impressive statistics. That's Babe Ruth hitting a home run at every 11.8 at bats. That's the leader. Mark McGuire is second in the history of the game with 13.8. 1 home run every 13.8 at bats. That's very, very impressive. You see Ted Williams, 14.8. Harmon Killebrew, 14.2. And Ralph Kiner at 14.1. That's some impressive home run hitting there.
Impressive company from Mark McGuire. Yeah. And that's among all home run hitters who hit at least 200 home runs in their careers.
Well, where was I?
You were just a little bit higher.
So that list wasn't long enough.
You were 1 every
150.
Come on now.
But that is, I mean, that is very impressive.
You were just a second baseman. You were just supposed to bunt and try to get walks
and make a few double plays.
That's right. McGuire on the curveball right to center. Goodwin broke the wrong way. Look out, and he missed it. So McGuire reaches. Goodwin started knuckling on Goodwin, and he had all kinds of trouble with it.
That's exactly what happened, John. It looked like it was going to go farther, and then it seemed like it knuckled and started toward right center field. He tried to reverse his field, but he couldn't come up with it. And watch this ball. McGuire hits the top of it, and he hits it hard. See, he starts straight back. Now he starts toward right center, and the ball actually bounces in front of him. I don't know how they're going to score it. They haven't yet, but he's on base, so he has to get some kind of ruling.
Keeps the inning going for Terry Steinbach. 3-1, Baltimore ahead. Fourth inning, it'll be scored as an error. Steinbach fouls it away. Now, Steinbach had this run in Oakland last week, where each day for 3 days at a crucial spot late in the game, he hit a home run with his team trailing. And Steinbach is getting a reputation around baseball as being a real strong clutch hitter. Not many guys have had a 3-day run like he had. 2 against Baltimore, did it against Messina, then he did it against Benitez out of the Baltimore bullpen, then he did it against the Yankees in the 8th inning of the game. Struck out his first time tonight. 1 ball, 1 strike to Steinbach. And it's too high now. Sid Fernandez got a bad break here. The rookie center fielder misplayed what should have been the 3rd out of the inning. And now Sid's got to kind of take him off the hook here.
Well, the one problem you have is that Sid is very fragile, and you can't make mistakes behind him. Because just remember one thing, Sid has not gone past the 5th inning this year. And you're in the 4th, he may start to tire just because he has not pitched past the 5th inning. So you do not want him to have to make extra pitches because you make mistakes in the field. It wasn't an easy play, though. I mean, a veteran out here that's used to playing in this ballpark a lot may have made the play. The ball was drilled, and then it just really started to knuckle and dive away from Goodwin in center field.
And as you pointed out, had he not slipped right at the last, he might have caught it anyway. Now it's a full count. Well, that's 71 pitches thrown by Sid Fernandez. We're only in the 4th inning.
And I see a drop in his velocity as well. You know, he's dropped a couple of miles an hour. Not that that's a big warning sign at this particular point, but if he drops a couple of more, then he's not going to be as effective.
3-2. McGuire goes. That ball is fouled away. McGuire will have to go back to first. 3 runs, 4 hits for the Orioles. 1 run, 1 hit for Oakland. The only hit allowed up till now by Sid Fernandez, the leadoff home run by Mike Bordick. Since that time, Fernandez has had 5 strikeouts. In fact, those were all in a row. And until McGuire reached in the error in this inning, he had retired 9 straight hitters. McGuire takes off. High in the air, shallow right, Barbary out, Hammonds in. And that's the inning. Hammonds takes it. 3-1 for the Orioles. Cal Ripken will be coming up with Harold Baines and Jeffrey Hammonds. And the Orioles are ahead 3-1. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball tonight. We're in Baltimore. The Orioles leading the Athletics 3-1 from beautiful Camden Yards. Built in 1992, are opened, and one of the popular areas in Camden Yards, out beyond the 2 bullpens, where they sell standing room. It's also part of the picnic area where people gather, have cookouts before the game. So the folks out there enjoying the ball game, they're always the first to know when somebody is warming up in the bullpen. Here's Cal Ripken. In fact, I believe those standing room tickets go for just $3, Joe. Next time we come, we'll have to do that. We'll save some money. Cal Ripken, he singled his first time, and that started a 3-run rally for the Orioles. He's hitting .298. And it is a ball, the longest consecutive game streak. Of course, Lou Gehrig, and we all know that. It was, I think we were all supposed to memorize it when we were in grade school. 2,130. Cal is now at 2,043. And barring rainouts or anything, if he's able to play in every game between now and then, he would equal Gehrig's record on September the 5th here in Baltimore and pass him September the 6th. And of course on September the 5th, if that's the night, it will be seen right here on ESPN. 2,043 consecutive games, Joe.
That's a lot of That's a lot of games to play in a row. As you know, I'm not a real proponent of infielders playing, you know, every day. So, I mean, what he has accomplished is really a major feat. In that infielders are less durable because they get knocked around, and it takes a little more toll on them physically just playing shortstop than it does other positions.
Right to Bourne. And he throws out Cal Ripken. Well, Lou Gehrig, during his streak, was of course the first baseman of the Yankees, actually started the streak as a pinch hitter one night. And the next day, of course, we all know the story. Wally Pipp, the first baseman, had a headache, couldn't make it, so they put Gehrig in there as a replacement for Pipp. And in fact, they weren't even sure Gehrig was going to be a good first baseman at that point. Baines takes a strike. Aaron Ward ended up pinch hitting for Gehrig in the game. And Gehrig, before that month ended where he started the streak, was lifted for pinch hitters 3 different times.
Actually, I was under the impression, John, and I guess they may have changed the rules since then. So maybe we have a story here. Maybe he may only have to get 2,129 because you're supposed to have to play in the field in order for a streak like that to go. I thought.
Well, you either have to have a full at bat or a half inning in the field. One or the other.
All right.
July 5th of that year. Now his streak was maybe at 35 games. He wasn't in the lineup. Lou Gehrig. Fred Merkle played first base that game, and they brought Gehrig in the 9th inning, just for the final inning of that game. Otherwise, the streak wouldn't have started until the day after. One day he had lumbago, which is a recurring problem for Gehrig. In the mid-season of 1934, he had an attack of lumbago, had to be helped off the field right in the middle of a game. This happened. And now the next day, his streak was already at 1,426 games, which at that time was the all-time record. He'd broken the record. But he was not able to play. His veins draws a walk. He could hardly stand up, and they put him in the lineup as a leadoff man playing shortstop. He got a single, hobbled down to first base. They put in a runner for him, and that kept the thing going. This was a brawl the Orioles had. This was one of the closest that Ripken came to missing a game. Ripken was right in the middle of that big brawl. He twisted his right knee in there. You see him right in the middle of the pile there. And the next day he could hardly walk. And he thought when he woke up the next day that he was not going to be able to play that night, and the streak was going to come to an end. But he got some treatment on it and had to stay off the knee all that day. And by the time he got to the ballpark, he felt that he was able to be out there.
I don't think there's any doubt there has to be numerous occasions where he's been injured when he started the game. You know, he just didn't feel well or something was bothering him. But to keep a streak like that alive, you have to play when you're in pain.
So when they talk about Ripken's record versus Gehrig's record, I mean, there were interesting little sidelines to each of the streaks. But Ripken has started every game of this streak at shortstop or for the first month or so at third base. He's never been a DH. He's never been used as a pinch hitter or as a defensive replacement. He has started every one of those games at either shortstop or third base.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that it's much easier to accomplish that streak at first base than it is at shortstop because of all the wear and tear. And that's not to take anything away from Gehrig, because obviously it's very difficult to play first base as well. But I remember I read a quote from Joe DiMaggio talking about how great, you know, Gehrig was and et cetera, et cetera. He said that he was one of a kind, and I'm sure he is, or he was, and I'm sure that Cal Ripken is one of a kind.
Well, Gehrig, as far as I could tell from the reading I did, Gehrig, just the one time that they really had that contrivance of him hitting leadoff when he really couldn't play, having keeping his at bat and then leaving the game, never playing in the field. That was in 1934. Hammonds is down on strikes.
Well, Dave Stewart again has a good fastball. He says he's had good stuff. This is a high fastball he throws right by Hammonds, and that is his 5th strikeout.
Gehrig in his career played despite a broken thumb, a broken toe, back spasms. Numerous times he had a high temperature. He had colds, flu, and he had the recurring attacks of lumbago, which would have been the one thing that would have stopped his streak after about 1,400 games. Ripken one time got kicked out of a game in the first inning while he was in the middle of an at-bat. Now, had it happened on the road, I suppose the streak would have ended right there, because you have to have a full at-bat. But it happened in Baltimore at the old Memorial Stadium, and he had already played the half inning in the field. Gehrig also got thrown out of 6 games when he played. And Ripken's been thrown out of 2. One thing Ripken did too, just while we're on the subject, give you the whole story. First 5 years of the streak, he played every inning of every game. And the best anybody was ever able to find out during research on it, no player in the history of baseball has ever played more than 2 full seasons of every inning of every game. Ripken did it for 5 years.
They put a shift on Noakes this time at bat. Now they've moved the shortstop Bordick over to the right side of the infield.
Well, the last time they would have had to put somebody up there on the Utah Street.
You're right.
You get a look at the way they've shifted now for Noakes. Only Brocious remains on the left side of the infield. He's all by himself over there. 2 down in the 4th inning. 3-1. The Orioles ahead by virtue of Noakes' 3-run homer in the 2nd. Dave Stewart with another strikeout. That's 6 for him in 4 innings. The Orioles lead it though 3-1 after 4. With Joe Morgan, your Sunday Night Baseball telecasters. Sid Fernandez tonight matched up with Dave Stewart, a couple of old Warriors, and of course Stu's still the ace of the Athletics, or so they're hoping. Sid Fernandez trying to keep his career going, Joe, and he's looked pretty good.
Well, he's throwing the ball very well. His control has been his big plus tonight. He has a good fastball. He started around 90 miles an hour. He's down around 88 now, so we'll have to watch that to see if he drops any more speed off of his fastball, but he's throwing very well.
The pitch count keeps mounting for Sid Fernandez. We'll see how much strength he had, because he had not gone very far in the game. This is only the 2nd time that he's made it into the 5th inning this year. He has never made it through the 5th inning in a game in 1995. The batter is Brent Gates, switch hitter. Struck out looking his first time. That is a fair ball. Hammonds chases after it. And Gates is easily going to be into second with a double. The first hit for the Athletics since Bordick led off the game with a home run.
Well, it was still a pretty good pitch by Fernandez. All Gates did was reach out and poke it down the right field line, but he finds a hole on the right side. And look, it's a fastball away, and Gates just reaches out, pokes it down the line for a base hit. He's late on it, and it's a fair ball, and it's a double.
Now Scott Brocious comes up. 3-1 for the Orioles as we play the 5th inning. The Athletics with 1 run and 2 hits. Fernandez only 1 walk. He has 5 strikeouts. And that's a called strike.
Well, this is an interesting situation here. Tony La Russa is the one that has to make the decision of whether you want Brocious to take a shot toward the right side to move Gates over to third, because you're still early in the ball game, and if you can pick up 1 run here, 1 run there, you still have a shot. And the A's are working on a 6-game losing streak, so they need to try to manufacture some runs.
Well, he curved him, and the count is 0-2 to Brocious. He struck out looking his first time.
That was a beautiful slow curve there from Sid. Sid's motion gives him a good opportunity to change speeds, to throw a straight change and the slow curve, because his fastball really pops from the same position, and you have to jump at the ball a little bit, try to get ready for it.
0-2 the count. He bluffs towards second. Well, it's easy to forget some of the things that Sid did while he was over with the Mets. I mean, he was always overshadowed, number one. He always had outstanding pitchers, Dwight Gooden, chief among them. And of course, they always seem to be disappointed by Sid, no matter what he did, that it was just never what he should have been doing. That's too high for a ball. Sid Fernandez, number 1 year there, was the toughest man to hit in baseball. 187 innings 1 year, only 127 hits allowed with the Mets. That was 1988. Now time taken, and Sid, as he will when men get on base, working very slowly.
Well, this is the example you talked about. I mean, he just slows the game down, but again, sometimes you have a tendency to overthink. Things have been going well. Continue to pitch as you have, you know, the first 4 innings. Now all of a sudden he seems like he's going to outthink the hitter.
1-2 the count. Just got a piece of it to stay alive. Still 1 ball and 2 strikes. Sid in 1985, which really was his rookie season, pitched 170 innings and gave up 108 base hits, which is an incredible total. But he never won more than 16 games. Did that 1 time, won 14 games twice, and always left them shaking their head saying, man, he should be winning 20. Third ball, that is just barely foul. Brocious almost did the same thing that Gates did. He took aim at that first base bag, but his was just foul. Fernandez came to the Orioles last year, and things had not been quite the same. With the Orioles, he gave up more hits than innings pitched last year. And of course, he gave up an amazing total of home runs for the innings he pitched. And that's last year and this year combined since coming to Baltimore. A little bit of a different park to pitch in here than Shea Stadium. Fouled away. He's a fly ball pitcher. A lot of home runs he gives up in this part, Joe, are caught 20 feet in front of the walls there at Shea Stadium. One ball, 2 strikes.
You get a look at Phil Regan, the rookie skipper of the Baltimore Orioles. Things have not gone as well as he would hope for this early in the season, especially with his pitching staff. And of course, you mentioned Sid being one of the major problems that he's had, along with Ben McDonald.
Popped up, soaring pop-up, foul ground. Manto and Noakes, and it's out of play. Both Manto and Noakes go into the Oakland dugout, hostile territory. They get out of there real quick. 1 ball and 2 strikes. The count remains to Brocious, really battling it out here with Sid Fernandez in the 5th inning.
That was a very good pitch there from Fernandez. He tied Brocious up with a fastball inside, and he was just able to get under it to foul it out of play.
And he has fouled each of the last 5 pitches against Sid since the count went to 1-2. The Orioles finally got a very strong start from Ben McDonald last Wednesday. Get his first win. Came in Anaheim. He'll go tomorrow night here in this ballpark against Randy Johnson as the Mariners come to town. They're hoping that Ben now is recouped. Ben had 7 wins at this time last year after the same number of games on the schedule. He's got 1 so far. They have a chance of having a pretty solid rotation. Brown, Messina, McDonald, Fernandez, but other than Brown and Messina, it hasn't happened. Curves it and misses outside. 2-2. Brocious was called out on a pitch much like that in the 2nd, and he was angry then too.
Well, Sid is throwing the ball outside. He missed with a curveball that pitched before. They come back inside, and he really ties Brocious up with that pitch inside. Actually looked like a pretty good pitch. And let's take a look at Sid Fernandez's motion. And see this, he steps and then he releases the ball from here. But he steps before he releases it. I think that throws the hitter off. And then he has a good fastball, and he always releases it high. The high fastball is the toughest pitch to hit still.
Craig Paquette, curveball. Where was that one? Ball one. Sometimes a good curveball will fool a hitter, as you well know, but also it'll fool an umpire sometimes. That, by the way, was the 85th pitch thrown by Sid Fernandez in this game. One out in the 5th inning, runner at second. Back to the bag goes Gates.
See, that's the point we're making here. He's starting to think about things other than getting the hitter out. You shouldn't have to worry about Gates. How many bases does Gates steal? He doesn't steal bases.
He's not going anywhere.
And he's 2 runs down. Just concentrate on the hitter.
And there was no pickoff play on.
No. I mean, the point is, the hitter's the only enemy you have right now. You don't worry about Gates at second base.
Paquette struck out his first time. He misses down and in. Ball 2. Andy Tomberlin, a left-handed hitter, is on deck. Dave Stewart was 6 strikeouts in 4 innings for the Athletics. Fernandez was 6 in 4 1/3 innings. Each pitcher has given a pretty good accounting of himself up till now. All of the scoring is a result of home runs. Foul tip and the fastball. 2-1 the count. Good pitch up and on the outside. I guess the big question is why did Paquette swing at it with the count 2-0?
A 2-0, a lot of hitters will zone in. They'll look for a ball middle of the plate in, and if it's not middle of the plate in, they won't swing at it.
I hear a lot of hitters, Joe, saying, hey, you're looking fastball and you get the fastball and you end up swinging, but I mean, it wasn't the fastball in the zone you want.
Exactly. You should be hitting for a zone, not just looking for a pitch.
Well, that's the one Scott Brocious wanted to call. Paquette gets the call. 3-1 the count.
Take a look at this fastball from Fernandez. That one's very similar to the one that Brocious was called out on.
3-1 to Paquette. That one's hit deep to center. Good one back. It's tied up over the center field wall near the deepest part of the ballpark.
Well, that's one of the problems you have when you start thinking about the runner at second base. You fall behind in the count. He fell behind 2-1, then he fell behind 3-1, and he had to give Paquette a pitch to handle, and he hit it over the center field wall.
Second homer for Paquette.
Well, it's a 3-1 fastball about belt high on the inside part of the plate. This is the pitch that he should have been looking for 2-0, but he gets it on a 3-1 pitch, and he drives it to straightaway center field. And the ball carries well here, and it goes right out of the ballpark.
3-3, and here is Andy Tomberlin. And he blew the fastball past him. Strike one. Tomberlin lined to shallow left his first time. And the Baltimore bullpen is going to get busy now. And that curveball misses. 1 ball and 1 strike. There is Mike Oquist, young right-hander, up in the Orioles bullpen. Paquette, they list that home run at 419 feet. It was just to the right of the 410 marker. In the air, left center, Brady Anderson. Out number 2. There is Craig Paquette. He's only hit the 2 homers this year, and they both come against Oriole left-handers who've been struggling. His other one in Oakland last week against Arthur Rhodes, who after that ball game was sent down to the minor leagues. Paquette, he's shown himself capable of hitting some home runs. Well, that's 4 2/3 innings for Sid Fernandez now. He tries to finish the 5th for the first time. Mike Bordick, who homered against him, leading off the game, takes a curve for ball 1. He fouled out to third his last time. He's 1 for 2. 3-3, top of the 5th. On the right field line, it is foul. Jeffrey Hammond's giving chase, was not going to be able to get to it, but it just would not stay fair. The panoramic look here at Camden Yards. You see the empty seats up there in left field. The Orioles have had more non-sellouts this year than in their other seasons, almost altogether. It's been like a hit Broadway show here since they came to this ballpark in downtown Baltimore. You've had to, in the years past, you had to make your plans months in advance to make sure you got a seat to a ball game here. And that's a ball outside. 2-1 to Bordick. Geronimo Berroa is on deck. Oakland with its 2 home runs tonight. Oakland has hit 45 home runs this year. There's a pop-up. First baseman Paul Merrill comes down the line to end the inning. So Fernandez has completed the 5th, but not with the lead. 3-3. We go to the last of the 5th. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. It is 3-3 as we go to the last of the 5th inning here from Camden Yards. Now coming up tomorrow on ESPN, College World Series action. Tennessee will take on Cal State Fullerton on ESPN at 3:30 Eastern. And then Stanford versus Clemson in the losers bracket on ESPN 2 at 7:30 Eastern. ESPN's coverage of the College World Series continuing tomorrow on ESPN and The Deuce. Mike Harkey pitched here yesterday. Used to pitch for the Titans at Cal State Fullerton.
I stopped through there on my way here, John. They gave me a cap, and I was going to wear it on the air, and I left it in the room.
College World Series?
College World Series hat, and I left it in my room. I was in such a hurry to get over here and talk to you today.
Well, you look good without it, though. Here's Jeff Manto against Dave Stewart, taking ball 1. 3-3. Manto struck out his first time. Stewart has 6 strikeouts with 1 walk in the first 4 innings. The only runs against him on the 3-run homer by Matt Noakes. Ball to strike on the outside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Well, finally, I'm starting to see a pattern with Dave Stewart, a consistent pattern that is successful. He's starting to throw a few more breaking ball sliders. Earlier in the ballgame, he was using fastball, forkball. But now he's using fastball, forkball, and a slider, and that makes him more effective. And when I talked to him yesterday, he said that he would throw the riding fastball early in the ballgame, but late in the ballgame, he'll start turning it over and throwing more of a sinking fastball when he feels like maybe he's tiring a little bit or he needs to get some ground balls.
1 ball, 2 strikes to Manto. The 8th place hitter, Barbary on deck. Got a piece of it. Another good fastball by Dave Stewart.
And that's the grip that he threw early in the ball game, his fastball, the riding fastball. And, you know, that's the 2-seam fastball he turns over a little bit like a sinker.
He throws a forkball and the split-fingered fastball as well. Fastball misses.
He's using very few sliders, though. I'm a little surprised with some of these right-handed hitters that he's not using the slider a little bit more just to keep him off balance. No matter what leg you play in, the breaking ball is still effective. It still helps you to set up your other pitchers.
He struck him out with a high hard one. Number 7 for Stewart.
And that is his 3rd strikeout in a row. Well, this pitch is way out of the strike zone, but he has such good velocity on it that the hitter doesn't have time to decide whether it's a strike or not. So with 2 strikes, he has to swing at it. You know, I've been preaching this all along, that if you get ahead and you have a good fastball, you throw it up in the strike zone, they have to swing at it with 2 strikes.
Brent Barbary, the hitter. Strike 1 on the outside. When Stewart was a perennial 20-game winner for the Athletics, 1987 through 1990, 20 or more each year for 4 straight years, he always seemed to do just what it took to win a ball game. It's Gates at second. And Barbary is retired out number 2. In other words, if Oakland had 3 runs on the board, well, he was going to
give you 2.
Keep you right there. Yeah. And we'll see now. Of course, this is an older Dave Stewart. He hasn't been a 20-game winner since those great days. And right now, Oakland's put 3 on the board. In the old days, I think he would have shut down Baltimore the rest of the way to give Oakland a chance to go out and get that 4th or 5th run to win the ball game for him. Well, it's a pretty impressive inning so far. I mean, he's throwing strikes to everybody. Got a strikeout and a ground out. Goodwin, the leadoff man, has singled and grounded out against him, and he's down 0-1. Brocious very shallow at third. 1 ball, 1 strike. And you see the alignment on the left side of the infield. Brocious in on the grass there.
Actually, they're giving him the middle of the diamond. Shortstop Bordick is playing over in the hole at shortstop. Second baseman's playing him to pull a little bit, so the middle of the diamond is clear. As you see the good fork ball there from Stewart to Goodwin.
1-2 the count. 2 down, nobody on. Got him looking at the fastball. Stewart is in a groove now. That's 8 strikeouts in 5 innings. Baroa, Sierra, McGuire coming up. We're tied. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball from Camden Yards in Baltimore. This is John Miller along with Joe Morgan. And we've got a 3-3 ball game going here. And Oakland with a home run from Bordick in the first. The Orioles a 3-run homer by Noakes in the second. And then Paquette a 2-run homer for Oakland in the fifth to tie the game. Sid Fernandez trying to perhaps stay in the Orioles rotation, maybe even stay in the big leagues. And he gives up a base hit on the first pitch to Geronimo Baroa. The first hit of the series for Baroa. 3-3 is the score back in the first inning. Bordick, the first hitter of the game. And that was his first home run of the year. Then in the second inning with 2 men on and 1 man out, Matt Noakes hit a shot against Stewart. Out toward Utah Street, towards Boog's Barbecue. 3-run shot. Then in the fifth with 1 man on. Craig Paquette over the center field wall. And that tied the game. Now Sid Fernandez, after giving up a single to Baroa, may be finished. They've got Oquist up in the bullpen, and here comes Phil Regan. And he takes the ball from Fernandez. That single was on the 97th pitch thrown by Sid. And of course, this is the first time all year that he has pitched as far as the 6th inning. Well, he leaves in a 3-3 tie. It's an improvement. Not quite what they're looking for, though. We'll see. It is 3-3 as we play the top of the 6th inning. Runner at first, nobody out. The big guns are up for the Athletics, and this is the new pitcher, Mike Oquist, on for Baltimore. Join ESPN tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia Flyers. The Devils won Game 1 last night by a 4-1 score. Goalie Martin Brodeur has allowed just 1 1/4 goals per game in 10 playoff starts. The Devils and Flyers tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN, which tomorrow night will stand for NHL. Mike Oquist, he's pitched very well for the Orioles in a long relief role. He inherits a runner. Baroa at first base, the possible go-ahead runner. The dangerous Sierra at the plate. He's walked and fly deep to right tonight. Batting left-handed for the first time. He takes strike 1. Sierra has hit only .218 as a lefty. Back to the bag at first is Baroa. Oquist with his first outing since last Tuesday when he went 2 2/3 innings in Anaheim. Oquist, not a real hard throw. He's a good sinker, slider. 1 ball, 1 strike now. 3-3 in the 6th inning. So Joe, if it's your ball club, based on what Sid Fernandez showed you tonight, I mean, is there a breakthrough for Sid in this game?
I think he's earned another start, yes. I think he's pitched well enough that he's earned himself another start because they could use Sid Fernandez. They actually need him if they're going to challenge for the divisional title.
Time taken, and Sierra will walk away from the plate here. Interesting sidelight here, Joe. As Sid now in the dugout, his night is finished, except he could still lose this game if Baroa came around to score. That would be charged to Fernandez. I'll tell you what we're talking about the sideline in a moment. 1 ball, 1 strike to Sierra. McGuire on deck, and there's a long one toward the bleachers. Goodwin is back to the wall. Gone, a home run. And now Oakland is ahead and charged that 4th run to Sid Fernandez. Ruben Sierra with his 7th home run of the year. And that gives him 23 runs batted in. The 3rd home run of the game for the Athletics.
Looked like a fastball up and out over the plate. And Ruben Sierra swings about a 36-inch, 36-ounce bat. And when he touches it, there's usually no doubt about it. And he touched this one up very well in the right center field. It's a high fastball out away from him, and Sierra just rips it into right center field.
Now McGuire, and he takes a called strike. So Oakquist right in out of the bullpen, and he gives up a long one. The first home run allowed by Oakquist this year after 23 and a 3rd innings without giving up one. Ball 1 strike now to McGuire. So this is a game that Sid Fernandez could now lose.
Yes.
3 home runs for Oakland in this game. Ball 2. The Orioles announced before the game that they were. That's a liner into left field. That's going to be a base hit for McGuire. So Oakquist getting hit hard here since entering the game. Steinbach will be coming up.
Well, you have to remember he didn't come in at the bottom of the order either. He came in with Sierra and now McGuire, and now he has to face Steinbach. So he's facing the meat of the order. McGuire just doesn't get this ball high enough to get it out. He hit it hard enough for it to be a home run, but he just got on the top of it and hit a line drive.
McGuire at first here to Steinbach. The Orioles apparently announced today before the game that they were putting Paul Carey, a minor leaguer who's on their 40-man roster, on waivers to create room on their roster, which oftentimes means that they're anticipating a deal being made to bring somebody in. Got to create space for him. That's the only information we have, but we do know that also there was talk going on that Sid Fernandez might not be around much longer if he didn't have a strong outing here tonight. As it turns out, he goes 5 innings plus. The first 4 innings were very impressive. Then he gave up the 2-run homer in the 5th and a single in the 6th, and he was gone. His final line reads 4 runs allowed in 5 innings. Off of home plate, and that just goes foul.
A smart play there by Mento. He got the bad hop, and he wasn't going to be able to make the play at first base even, so he let it go, and it, luckily for the Orioles, it went foul. When the ball is first hit, Mantle thinks that he can throw Steinbach out because Steinbach doesn't run that well. But watch when the ball hits, it'll bounce left. That would have made him have to backhand it, throw across his body, so he lets it go, and it does roll foul.
1 ball, 1 strike, Manto. The young player in terms of Major League experience, but in his 11th year in pro ball, 30 years old now, and getting that shot. They haven't made him any promises. They never told him he's the permanent replacement over there, but they've played him every day as long as he's been hitting. They say, hey, let's go with the guy who's got the hot bat. 1 ball, 1 strike to Steinbach. Bullpen activity for the Orioles. Alan Mills, a right-hander, is up. Hard thrower. 5-3. Oakland is ahead. They had been trailing 3-1. You hear all of the commotion, the fans booing. Cato Kalin of the O.J. Simpson trial fame is here tonight, and he is leaving the ballpark now. Some of the fans are giving him the old Bronx cheer here, Joe. Cato is in town with a local radio station. They brought him in. He's going to go on their morning show tomorrow. He's also been doing some stand-up comedy with Louis Anderson, veteran comedian. Just never know who's going to show up here at the ballpark.
Well, baseball is for everyone. Very few people dislike the game of baseball.
like Cato and his entourage maybe we're having a sidebar. 1 out, 1 on, 2 in, up the middle, past the diving Ripken. McGuire will hold at second base. So Brent Gates gets a single.
Well, it's a low fastball. Gates rips it up the middle. Ripken, I thought he was going to be able to get there, but he stumbles just before he makes the dive, and it goes just under his glove on into center field for a base hit.
One out, 2 men on, 2 runs in. Oakquist has allowed hits to 3 of the 4 hitters he's faced. And with Scott Brocious coming up, Phil Regan heads out to the mound again, and he has already signaled for the right-hander, Alan Mills. So Oakquist just didn't have it here tonight. 5-3, the Athletics out in front, threatening to get more. We'll be back. Back in the 6th inning here in Baltimore, Sunday Night Baseball. The Oakland Athletics have turned the game around. They lead now 5-3 with 2 men on, 1 man out. Mike Oakquist just added fuel to the fire he inherited, and now Alan Mills will come on and try and calm things down. Mills, a hard-throwing right-hander, off to a terrible start, although his numbers now only as a result of pitching so well for the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
He comes on with McGuire at second base and Brent Gates over at first base. Mills with a 2.30 earned run average during the month of May. His earned run average in 4 games in April was 31.50. So he had a ways to go to get it to look respectable. And it's not that respectable. 5.60 for the year, as you saw. Scott Brocious, the hitter. 2 men on, 1 man out. High foul out of play. Brocious has struck out twice in this game. 2 of the 6 strikeouts for Sid Fernandez in his 5 innings. 5-3, Oakland ahead. 5 runs, 7 hits for the Athletics. 3 of their 7 hits have been home runs. Bordick, Paquette, and Sierra. All of Oakland's runs on home runs. The Orioles 3 runs and 4 hits. All of their runs on Matt Noakes' 3-run homer. There's a slider from Mills. Ruben Sierra. Oakquist came in to face him, and Sierra put the Athletics ahead with a home run into the center field bleachers. And Mike Oakquist, who just didn't have it tonight. Oakquist has pitched very well this year in long relief, where he's come in. The Orioles were trailing early in the game, but tonight they weren't trailing. It was 3-3, and tonight he just looked very hittable. Craig Paquette is on deck. 5-3. The Athletics ahead in the 6th inning. And Mills has a very important job here because Oakland, with the 2 men out there, they're threatening to go out and get another run or 2 here, which changes things considerably. Mills' job to try and keep it close.
Well, he threw Brocious a fastball, and he got a good swing at it, so he's thrown him 2 breaking balls since. He's missed with both. Now he's going to have to come back with a fastball. No, he threw another breaking ball. Now it's 3-1.
Missed terribly with it.
Yeah, you have to. You can't walk him in this situation because that would put a runner at third in the scoring position where he can score on a fly ball. Plus, it would load the bases. And if you have a good fastball, as Mills does, I don't see why you're afraid to throw it.
Wire at second, Gates at first. Well, he threw it, and he missed even worse with that one. And the bases are loaded. And now Noakes out to speak with him. And Phil Regan in the dugout chatting with Mike Flanagan, the pitching coach. When the season started, the Orioles bullpen was terrible. There's Flanagan, one of the outstanding Orioles pitchers in the history of the franchise. Now the pitching coach in his first year in that job. But it was as if when the season started that none of the relievers were really ready to pitch yet after the shortened exhibition schedule. Now lately the starting pitching has been so strong during the 4-game winning streak plus a day off that the last 5 or 6 days hardly anybody's worked out of the bullpen. Ball 1, and he missed badly that one. Mills is not even coming close now.
No, he is not. He threw the first pitch that Grosh's fouled off for a strike, and then he missed with 4 straight to him, and now he's 1-0 to Paquette. And Paquette hit a home run his last time up.
And Flanagan out to visit with him. And the Orioles bullpen is busy again. Get a left-hander up out there now, Brad Pennington. Coming up now next Sunday on ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball from Texas. The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, John Kruk on that club now as well. The White Sox and the Rangers. Juan Gonzalez is back. And Will Clark. And it will be Kenny Rogers on the mound right now, the hottest pitcher in the American League. 5 straight wins. It'll be next Sunday night, 7:56 Eastern, 4:56 Pacific. There's a long one to center. This one has a chance. Good one all the way back. It is a grand slam for Craig Paquette. And the Athletics have busted it wide open now. The first grand slam in the career of Craig Paquette. It is 9-3 for Oakland. Man, they've hit some shots here tonight. Their 4th home run of the game, the 2nd of the inning.
Well, you fall behind the hitters, and then you try to throw a strike, and the hitter's sitting on it. This is not a bad pitch. It's down, but it's away a little bit, and Paquette just hits it straight over the center field wall.
Well, Alan Mills knew where that one was headed. Up the middle, base hit for Andy Tomberlin on the first pitch. The Athletics trying to crack out of a 6-game losing streak, and a 6-run inning often would be a tonic for a losing streak.
Yeah, 6-run innings can usually help you to get over what ails you.
Mike Flanagan looked stunned there. He went out. He'd hardly gotten back to the dugout when Mills threw the next pitch that landed over the center field wall. A grand slam. Paquette with 2 home runs tonight and 6 runs driven in. Paquette only playing because Ricky Henderson is out. Paquette with 3 home runs for the year. They've all been against the Orioles. 9-3 Oakland ahead with a 6-run 6th inning. And the bullpen has faced 7 hitters. Has given up 3 singles, 2 homers, and a walk. By the way, Craig Paquette with his first grand slam, as we told you, but also his first 2-homer game. Way outside. 2-1.
He does not have any control of his breaking ball tonight, Alan Mills does. That is.
Paquette had 3 RBIs in the game before. And tonight he's had 6. So that's by far the best he's ever done. The runner goes down the right field line. And foul. 2-2 to Mike Bordick, the 9th batter of the inning for the Athletics. Well, the Orioles used their bullpen a little bit yesterday back at Mike Messina for 2 2/3 innings and an inning on Friday. They had an off day Thursday. They got 1 inning of relief Wednesday in Anaheim. Last time Mills worked was last Tuesday. Runner goes. Ball 3. Nobody was there, and then Ripken finally got there, and not even close. Tomberlin steals it easily. And it's 3-2 now to Bordick. If you were Phil Regan, would that bug you that they're running after scoring 6 runs and going ahead by 6?
Well, I think the reason that it wouldn't is because it's the 6th inning and because the A's have lost 6 in a row. Otherwise, It might.
Let's go for all we can get while we got him on the ropes here.
Well, the A's have lost 6 in a row.
Right side in the hole, base hit. Tomlin waved home. Hammonds throws in, and it's cut off by Mills. 10-3. 4 in a row of reached base against Mills. And that'll bring Phil Regan out again. Trying to find somebody and get an out here. An incredibly poor performance by the bullpen, which has faced 8 hitters and allowed 7 of them to reach base. 6 runs have scored in that time. In fact, make it 7 runs have scored since the bullpen came into the game. They're not smiling here in Baltimore, I'll tell you, as the bullpen is one of the worst performances you'll ever see from any team's bullpen, Joe.
Well, they came in, the game was tied when they went to the bullpen, and now it is a 9-3 lead. 10-3 actually, because Tomlin just scored. No, Tomlin scored. It's 10-3.
All right, 10-3.
So the bullpen has not done the job tonight for Phil Regan.
And to say the least, that's a little bit of an understatement, Joe. I mean, the bullpen has given up a month's worth of runs here and only gotten 1 out. That's all in 1/3 of an inning. And now the man who's been sort of the forgotten man of the Orioles bullpen will get a shot at it. Brad Pennington, who has only been in 7 games all year. You know, hard-throwing lefty, always considered a top prospect, but he's never been able to have success in the big leagues, and as a result of the lack of success, he's never been able to get consistent work when he's been in the big league. So maybe he's got a shot tonight to go some innings and prove that he belongs here. Meanwhile, Mike Oquist faced 4 hitters, gave up 3 runs, including a home run. Alan Mills faced 4 hitters, gave up a grand slam and 3 runs to his record, and leaves with a man out there. So now Pennington will try and do better. Here is Geronimo Barroa, the man who started the inning with a single against Sid Fernandez. The only pitch that Sid threw in this inning.
And it's interesting because he started off with the single, but he was 0 for the series, and he got the A's going here.
Over at first, Mike Bordick. Still only 1 away here in the 6th. Hammonds in right center. And that is the second out. 10-3 for Oakland. Ruben Sierra will bat again in this inning. He came on with the runner at first, and the score tied as Mike Oquist in from the bullpen to face him, and Sierra got hold of one. Into the center field bleachers it went. His 7th home run of the year. That broke the tie, and Oakland proceeded then to just break it wide open after that.
And he has a chance here to do something only a couple of people have done in the history of the game, hit a home run from both sides in the same inning.
In fact, only one's ever done. I think it was Carlos Baerga.
Carlos Baerga did it 2 years ago. Or was it 3 years ago?
Well, it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah.
I know that. I thought you knew.
I usually know a lot about the second baseman, but
Baerga did it against the Yankees. There's a wild pitch. And so to second base will go Bordick. Sierra is the 11th batter of the inning for the Athletics. 1 ball, 1 strike. Pennington trying to bring a smile to Mike Flanagan's face here. The Orioles came into this game with a 4-game winning streak and had lowered their team earned run average to 4.68 during that stretch with some good pitching. The pitching has been a problem for them. Popped up. Mancho and Noakes come over. Noakes into the dugout. For the pitch. And right down in there. So that's the inning. It is 10-3 for Oakland after a 7-run 6th. Anderson, Palmeiro, and Cal Ripken will be coming up for Baltimore. John Miller, Joe Morgan back with you here in Baltimore. It is 10-3 for the Athletics. And Dave Stewart, who at one point was trailing 3-1, got the big lead. The Athletics with a 6-game losing streak. And, of course, last year, the American League West was the joke of Major League Baseball. They finished up 57 below 500. Look what's happened so far this year. The West is the only team that all of its clubs add up to above 500 in the American League. The Central is the one way down, and even the East is still below 500 despite Boston's great start. Now the Orioles. Here is Brady Anderson, who was fouled to the catcher and grounded out.
Well, I know Dave Stewart is happy to have the 7-run lead, John, but we'll have to see how that long stay on the bench affected him, because he was throwing the ball very well at the end of last inning.
Called a strike on the outside. Brady did not like that call. 1 ball, 1 strike. Here's the owner of the Orioles. He bought the ball club for his hometown, Peter Angelos. Born and raised in Baltimore, an attorney. And of course, the one owner who did not field a team of replacements in spring training. That's a base hit. It's Brocious. Anderson might try for 2. Paquette up with it. And it's there, and he's saved. And he was awfully lucky. Great throw by Paquette. And a big gamble by Anderson, down by 7.
It's definitely a big gamble for Brady Anderson, but the one thing you don't want to do if you're the Orioles is stop hustling and stop playing the game hard. He lines this ball past the diving Brocious, and he decides, I'm going for a double, and he went right out of the batter's box to second base, and it was a good throw by Paquette, right on the money, but in safely is Brady Anderson.
It's interesting, Joe. Had Gates put the glove at the edge of the bag, he might have gotten him.
If he'd have tagged his hand instead of him, he would have gotten him. But again, you do not want to stop hustling if you're the Orioles. You don't want to take chances like that very often, but the one thing you have to do is try to get 1 back at a time. You still have 12 outs to go.
Palmeiro, the hitter. He is struck out and flying to shallow left. The Orioles home run and RBI leader. Way outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. It's also, you know, even in his big days as a 20-game winner for the Athletics, sometimes when you gave Stu a huge lead, he tended to lose his concentration a little bit.
Actually, that was a bad habit that he did have in those days, John. I don't think he has that habit as much now as before, because it's tougher for him now.
Base hit for Palmeiro. Anderson held up to make sure that it was not caught, and he will stop at third. So a double, then a single, and that'll bring up Cal Ripken.
And again, I'm not so sure that the long stay on the bench didn't have an effect on Dave, because he was throwing well before. Here's a fastball that's up, and Palmeiro just rips it to right field for a base hit.
Ripken tonight has singled and grounded to short. 1 for 2. 10-3, Oakland ahead. Stewart in some trouble in the 6th, but he's got a lot of room in which to maneuver. Harold Baines on deck. Line into left center. And a tremendous catch by Tomberlin. Tagging is Anderson. He'll score. And that could have been a 2-run double for Ripken. It turns into a sacrifice fly. Tremendous play by Tomberlin.
You won't see a much better play than that the entire season, because that ball was ripped in the left center. He left his feet. I didn't think he was going to be able to make the catch, but he just makes a tremendous catch. And I think he only makes this play because he's left-handed and he's on his glove side. Look at that. I mean, he stretches out completely and comes down with it. Just a great catch there by Tomberlin.
10-4 now. Here's Baines. And the changeup for a called strike. Baines, the former teammate of Dave Stewart, helped Stewart win a ball game, as I recall, or did he beat Stewart? 2-3 years ago in the playoffs in Toronto, Baines won a game for Oakland with a 3-run homer in the 9th inning. That's called a strike, and it is 0-2.
And you see a little different Dave Stewart than the one that finished last inning. He's no longer throwing the riding fastball. He's trying to throw the sinker to the left-handed hitters and trying to get the ground ball to try to get out of this inning with a double play.
Got him looking. And Baines retired for the first time in the game. That's 9 strikeouts for Stewart now.
Well, he got Baines thinking here, and then he just paints the outside corner. That is about as perfect a pitch as you will see. Right on the outside edge. Now watch, knee high right on the outside edge. Good pitch there by Dave Stewart.
Baines hit that home run in the '92 playoffs against, trying to hit it against Jack Morris. He just retired this spring. Who also kind of reminded me of Stewart a little bit. Big game pitcher, great in the clutch. Always did what needed to be done to win a ball game. Of course, the Blue Jays went on and won that series. That's a liner into left field, hanging up, but just in front of Paquette. Base hit for Hammonds, his first.
I tell you what, John, we have seen some hard-hit baseballs tonight. There's been some shots hit around this ballpark. Not just the home runs that are going out, but the singles and the balls that are hit in the gaps. These are bullets. And this ball is hit like a shot. There's a low, little cut fastball from Stewart. Hammonds lines at the left field. And when an outfielder doesn't have time to come in like 4 steps, you know the ball was hit hard. McGuire hit one that if Anderson couldn't take any steps in on. That ball was hit so hard that Paquette didn't have time to come in. So you're seeing some shots hit in this ballpark tonight.
Now Matt Noakes, who already has a 3-run homer in the game. He's got 2 men out again here in the 6th inning.
And Dave Stewart has to be careful. I know he still has a 6-run lead, but that can be cut in half here with 1 swing of the bat by Noakes. And remember, we're only in the 6th inning, so the Orioles have plenty of time to come back.
Jim Corsi warming up in the Oakland bullpen. Palmeiro at second, Hammonds at first, both ready to go in anything. 2 down. Chase that high fastball, 0-2 the count. There's Corsi out of the bullpen. Now the Oakland bullpen, unlike Baltimore's, has been a source of great strength for the Athletics this year. The bullpen has done a very fine job for that man, Tony La Russa. La Russa looks a little nervous right now, even with the big lead.
I don't think I've ever seen Tony when he was relaxed, John.
That'll go into the upper deck off to the left. 0-2 to Matt Noakes.
Well, you see that Dave Stewart is definitely aware that he can't give Noakes a ball that he can pull because he can get the Orioles right back in this ballgame. So you see him staying away, and Noakes finally punches one down the left field line.
High and away, 1 ball, 2 strikes. They got the shift on. In the infield again for Matt Noakes. You see the shortstop up there, Bordick, almost right up the middle.
Well, he's not playing as much to the right side as he was before because Dave Stewart is definitely trying to keep the ball away from Noakes. So he's not going to, be able to pull the ball as much as he has in the past. He's going to stay away if he can. Well, he comes way in with a slider. But the pitch that he wants to get him out with is a pitch away because he doesn't want him to pull the ball.
2-2 to Matt Noakes. Reaches for one and fights it off. Lofting it foul into the spectators down the left field line. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2 on, 1 in. 10-4. Oakland ahead. Oakland was trailing 3-1 in the 5th and tied it on Paquette's 2-run homer. Then they got 7 in the 6th, including Paquette's grand slam. And that we're in the last of the 6th now. Reach for and just does dribble that one foul. 2-2. The Cleveland Indians came from an 8-0 deficit today at Jacobs Field to beat Toronto 9-8, and they did it against David Cone. Of course, they also did a little bit earlier in the game, in the 6th. The 4th ball struck him out. Steinbach tags him out to make sure. And that is 10 strikeouts for Stu. But it was the big leaping grab by Andy Tomlin that was the key to the inning. Baltimore might have 2 home just on that play if he had not come up with it. What a play. McGuire coming up 10-4. Oakland ahead. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is brought to you by Price Pfister, the fabulous faucet with the funny name. And just a couple of blocks out behind the left field grandstand here at Camden Yards is the place where Babe Ruth was born. It's now the Babe Ruth Birthplace and Museum. A lot of Babe Ruth memorabilia. Also a baseball museum out there. And of course there's the Babe with a beer, a cigar, and a fistful of hot dogs. They said that one time, maybe it's just a legend, between games of doubleheader he once ate 12 hot dogs, Joe. Here is Mark McGwire, the only man with a better home run per at-bat ratio among all homer hitters over 200 homers is Babe Ruth. As we showed earlier, McGwire second only to the Babe in his home run frequency, one homer every 13.8 at-bats. Ironically, tonight in this barrage of homers for the Athletics, McGwire has not hit one. It's been the Craig Paquette show. 2 homers, 6 RBIs.
The interesting thing with McGwire is, you know, he set out the last couple of years, but each year he's gotten off to a good start. Last year he got off to a great start, and he went down, and he's gotten off to a good start this year. And the reason for that is that he doesn't have a long swing. He can sit out for a long period of time. Unlike most sluggers, he does not have a real long swing. He's got a compact swing, and he doesn't lose the groove as often as some of the big sluggers if they had to sit out for a whole year.
McGwire, 249 career home runs. And it's a foul back out of play. 3-2 the count. He has not hit a home run since May 25th, 10 days ago. He has hit more homers against the Orioles than against every other team except one. The only team he's homered against more often is Detroit. Struck him out. Pennington. It's a 91-mile-an-hour fastball. That's the way we clocked it on the Jugs gun. Gets his first strikeout.
It's a high fastball, and again, this is where they try to pitch McGwire. If you have a good enough fastball, you can get up the ladder on him, but you better not make any mistakes down low. He's a much better low ball hitter than he is a high ball hitter.
Now Terry Steinbach is struck out, flying to shallow right and flied out to center. 0 for 3. 10-4, Oakland ahead. Hard slider from Pennington. Ball 1. Pennington grew up in the Cincinnati area. He was a great Joe Morgan fan. Loved the Big Red Machine. And unlike some ball players, he really followed it closely. Very high for a ball. 2-0. Seems like these hard-throwing lefties, though, Joe. I mean, traditionally, it takes them a long time to harness all that power.
No, I agree. And the left-handers with good stuff are tougher to find because they usually are a little more erratic than guys that throw softly. The soft tossers can usually throw strikes. The guys with the good live fastballs, it seems it takes left-handers just a little longer to find the rhythm and to stay in it. Mike Flanagan was not a hard thrower. He's the pitching coach.
3-0 the count to Steinbach. And it's a 4-pitch walk. First base runner allowed by Pennington since he came in. 10-4, Oakland ahead, 7th inning. Bordick has homered, Sierra has homered, Paquette has homered twice as the Athletics try and snap a 6-game losing streak. Here is Brent Gates, who has had a terrible time of it early this year, but today he has 2 hits, 1 for 2, or let's see, a single and a double, 2 for 3. Ball 1.
And he has actually been a much better hitter from the right side this year than the left side.
Of course, he hasn't been very good from either side.
No. Well, I should point that out. 207 to 171. You're right. Not much of a hitter from either side.
No, you're right. It's much better right-handed. 207 versus 171. You're exactly. That's.
And the interesting thing with Gates is that Tony La Russa 2 years ago said that he felt like Gates was going to win a batting title, you know, in the next few years, which he still may do, but he has gotten off to a very slow start. Mike Gallego was brought back to Oakland to be the second baseman, and Mike Bordick was going to be a shortstop, and for a while Gates was going to go over at third. But Brocious has played so well at third that he has won that job, and also Gates didn't get enough work in spring training because of the shortened spring training. So they've had a makeshift defense all year. Their ideal lineup would have Gallego at second and Bordick at short.
Brent Gates out of the University of Minnesota hit .290 as a rookie 2 years ago. Hit .283 last year before he got hurt. Coming back from an injury this year, and of course with the shortened spring training, it's taking him a while to get it going again. Steinbach at first. That's a called strike. 3-1. Just like Steinbach, he went to the University of Minnesota, and he was the first member of the Minnesota team to hit better than 400 since Steinbach did it. And another walk. Back-to-back walks allowed by Brad Pennington. And that's one of the problems Pennington has had. He'll look great for a little while, and then all of a sudden he doesn't know where the ball's going. And that's usually the difference between being in a big league situation and being in the minors. It's that consistency.
Well, they sent Arthur Rhodes down for that reason. You know, he couldn't throw strikes. He was having problems finding the strike zone. And you're right. If you're in the big leagues, you're supposed to be able to throw strikes.
Well, there are a lot of guys with good arms in the minor leagues, and they'll look big league quality on this night, but it's the consistency that sets them apart. 10-4, Oakland ahead in the 7th, and 2 men on with 1 man out. The batter is Scott Brocious, who was struck out twice and walked. 1 ball, 1 strike to count to Brocious. The bullpen tonight has been terrible, and that's much the way the year started for the Orioles. They had some leads that were blown early on this year, and some wins that were turned into losses. It happened to them in Minnesota one night. They blew 2 different leads. They blew a 4-run lead and then blew a 2-run 8th-inning lead in the same game. Blew a 3-run 9th-inning lead one night here to Milwaukee, and that's a ball. 3-1. Well, Pennington, and again, just all of a sudden, after retiring 3 straight hitters, I mean, he retired Baroa, Sierra, and McGuire, and since then he's not given himself a chance to retire anybody. He's walked 2 straight, and now he's 2-2 to Brocious. 3-2.
This will be a test to see if La Russa wants to send the runners. Steinbach at second, not your fleet runner.
Popped up. Foul. Noakes and Palmeiro come over, and it hits the top of the dugout. 3-2. You saw the owner of the Orioles, Peter Angelos, there a moment ago, looking rather glum. Tony La Russa. Now, does he look like a man who's got a 10-4 lead?
Carney Lansford looked like the lead safe.
he looks confident.
Yeah, but Tony, being the manager that he is, and he probably was around when Yogi said it's never over till it's over, and he believes him.
Oh boy, so he just looks like he's mulling over all the things that could still go wrong in this game. 3-2 the count. It's another walk, so he has walked the bases loaded. And again, Paquette coming up with the bases loaded. In the 5th inning, he tied the game with this 2-run homer over the center field wall. And then, with the bases loaded in the 6th, he did it again, this time his first grand slam. Paquette with his first 2-homer game, his first grand slam. A career record for RBIs in a game. He has 6. He only had 6 RBIs for the year coming into this game. Paquette, remember, has hit those homers and driven in those runs in the last 2 innings. He's got a chance here, Joe, for 10 RBIs in 3 innings. And Phil Regan, He's got Armando Benitez up in his bullpen and is heading out to go get Pennington after 3 straight walks. So Benitez, who also has had serious control problems, will come in. 10-4, the Athletics lead the Orioles, top of the 7th. Sunday Night Baseball from Baltimore. Coming up now, join ESPN at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific for Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia Flyers. Devils won Game 1 4-1 last night. Goalie Martin Brodeur has allowed just 1.25 goals per game in the playoffs. That's the Devils and Flyers tomorrow night at 7:30 on ESPN. Here is an impressive specimen, Armando Benitez, built much like Lee Smith, the great closer with the Orioles last year, now with the Angels, but he has been very wild. And in Oakland, he gave up a grand slam to Terry Steinbach that cost the Orioles a game back on the 25th. Well, here he is with the bases loaded now. He gets Paquette to hit one to third, and now Barbary taken out at second base, and that will allow 2 runs to score. Trying to get the inning-ending double play, and the ground ball by Paquette. Steinbach scores, and on the wild throw, Gates scores. Brocious out at second, but it was his takeout of Brett Barbary that made it happen. So it'll be a 1 RBI for Paquette. That's his 7th. And then the second run will have to score on the error.
Well, if you watch, Barbary stays right there at the bag, and that's what gets you bowled over. You've got to come across the bag to get out of the way of the runner.
Chamberlain. Well, there's nobody there.
Well, it was just a base hit, because once Benitez went past Palmeiro, he could not feed him the ball. Benitez went over to cover, but no chance. That's just a base hit. And watch, he chops it to the right side. Now, if you watch, Benitez is on his way over. He's running, but he can't get it. But now once he gets it, there's no way that he can be fed by Palmeiro. They've already passed him, so it's a base hit for Tomlin.
Here now is Mike Bordick. Fastball to strike. Benitez throws very hard. And in 18 innings this year, given up only 11 hits before tonight, but also had walked 16. I think that he will one day end up being their closer, but obviously he is not ready yet. And at this point, he's had so many problems with his control of late that there is talk that they may end up sending him back to the minor leagues. In the 7th, Benitez is the 5th Baltimore reliever to be used. The 2 runs in this inning charged to Brad Pennington. All of the Orioles relievers up till now have given up runs. Craig Paquette on that infield out. 2 runs scored in the play. Gets credit for 1 RBI. He's got 7 RBIs in this game. 12-4 Oakland in the 7th inning. Hit hard. That's a fair ball. And they'll start running, and they'll run for a while. Fan interferes with the ball down the left field line. We'll see how many they allow to score. It's the umpire's discretion that decides. Sure looked to me like they both would have scored, Joe.
Well, they'll allow them both to score. Home plate umpire Rick Reed said the last run counts as well.
A double for Bordick, and that's 4 RBIs in the game for him now.
It's a hanging breaking ball. You see it's a slider that hangs up in his eyes. I mean, he rips it. Again, we've seen some balls hit real hard tonight. A lot of pitches that are hanging and a lot of pitches in the hitter's zones, and they're taking advantage of it. And there you see the runner coming in. And both runs do score.
So fan interference is not like a ground rule situation. If the umpire, there's no mandatory number of bases given. It's up to the umpire to decide what would have happened had the fan not interfered. And by the way, that fan, if they can identify him, will be booted out of the ballpark. You must never interfere with the ball in play, and they will always eject you from the ballpark if you do.
Well, if he's an Orioles fan, he probably wants to leave about now anyway, John.
A lot of folks are leaving. 14-4, Oakland ahead here in the 7th inning. After a 7-run 6th, 4 more here in the 7th. Goodwin, and the inning is over. 8 more men bat here in the 7th. 4 more score. Oakland 14, the Orioles 4, as we go to the last of the 7th. Athletics 14, Orioles 4. Those people holding signs up there, they've been holding them up the last 2-3 minutes saying ESPN Sports Center next. And then just as we, oh, there we go. We have it on tape. Here's another look at it. Coming up next with the highlights of all of the day's events in Major League Baseball, including the wild comeback win for Cleveland today against Toronto, and of course all of the sordid details of this one. This one is not pretty, Joe.
No, it's not.
Dave Stewart, though, he's being asked to be the stopper, and it looks like he'll have been so tonight. He goes 6 innings, and he leaves with a 10-run lead as they hand it over to Jim Corsi.
Well, I think that was important for the A's because that's why they brought him back to Oakland, to be the #1 pitcher on the staff and to stop these long losing streaks. And he's done a good job tonight. He pitched very well. He made the one bad pitch to Noakes early in the ball game to give up the 3-run homer, but other than that, he pitched very, very well. Struck out 10 batters.
It's not too bad in 6 innings. 10 strikeouts. Here's Jeff Manto, who struck out twice against him. Now, Jim Corsi, we told you that Oakland's bullpen has been sensational. And Corsi has not allowed a run all year. 16 2/3 innings, no runs, and only 6 hits allowed.
His only Achilles heel is he has walked 10 in that period of time, but other than that, he's pitched very well. And like I say, if they don't score on you, they can't beat you.
No runs for Corsi. And this is a guy who, the ultimate journeyman. He's been with the Marlins. The Marlins didn't keep him. Manto has a base hit. Hit number 8 for the Orioles. Well, they get another 15 or so of those in a row. They'll be right back in the game here. 14-4, Oakland ahead of the Orioles in the 7th inning. Peter Angelos, Orioles owner, not looking pleased. But a lot of stories that have been reported, and I don't know if they're stories or rumors or what, but the Orioles talking about making a big trade for a big name impact player like a Kirby Puckett. People like that. And Angelos has said the one thing that he intends to do with the Orioles is do whatever it takes to get them to the World Series and bring a championship back here to Baltimore. And of course, sometimes, Joe, what it takes to do that is patience.
Yes, good point. Sometimes you can't do it all in a half a year or 1 year. I mean, they made a lot of changes this year, John, and some people are thinking that maybe they made change just for the sake of change, because last year Johnny Oates had this team 14 games over 500, and he was fired this year. And they traded, Lee Smith basically for Doug Jones. They traded Brett Barbary basically for Mark McLemore, Phil Regan for Johnny Oates. And yet this team has not played as well as it did last year.
Yeah, let Mike Devereaux go after a terrible year last year. He's with the White Sox now. They picked up Andy Van Slyke, but he's been hurt most of the time.
Right. So they've made changes, but they have not improved. They've just made changes.
Brett Barbary down on strikes, and he is 0 for 3. One gone here in the 7th.
And I mean, when you look at Barbary's numbers compared to what McLemore has produced for him, I mean, Barbary's only driven in 2 runs the entire year, and he swings and misses a high fastball here.
Now Curtis Goodwin, the leadoff man, 1 for 3 in the game, although the one time he got a hit, he was thrown out trying to steal. He takes a called strike, 0-1. (14-4), the Athletics ahead in the last of the 7th. And a fourth ball swung on and missed. Strike 2. Dave Stewart, 6 innings, 4 runs, 7 hits allowed, 10 strikeouts, only 1 walk. He leaves with a 10-run lead, looking for his 3rd win of the year. 1 ball and 2 strikes now to Curtis Goodwin. Kevin Bass has come out of the on-deck circle now for the Orioles. Brady Anderson due up next, so Bass apparently will pinch hit for Brady. Of course, he gets Goodwin at first base. Dave Stewart, he was the stopper tonight, it looks like. We talked to Tony La Russa and asked him if he thought that Stewart still has enough to be an effective stopper.
Sometimes believe in players so much you get over-optimistic, but, you know, Dunk's a lot shrewder about things than I am, and Dunk's also real positive on Stu. You know, the last game that he pitched, if you just seen the ball jumping out of his hand, his stuff was fine. The command against Boston just wasn't.
He got clobbered against the Red Sox, but today Stewart did the job for the Athletics. There's Dave Duncan with the files there. Stewart threw 98 pitches. Most of them were strikes and 10 strikeouts. I mean, that's usually indicative of guys pretty tough to hit. Here's Kevin Bass, the veteran, pinch hitting for Brady Anderson. Bass, another Orioles change, hitting .282, 1 homer, 11 RBIs. Pretty handy man to have in a club. Can play the outfield well. He's a switch hitter. Just an experienced professional hitter. And can hit from either side of the plate.
And like you say, just a good guy to have on the team because he's also a good team player. He's a good person in the clubhouse and a good pinch hitter. He can do a lot of things for you.
Jeff Matto at second base. 2 down in the 7th inning. And that's a called strike from Corsi. Corsi was just let go by the Marlins at the end of last season. He ended up getting never getting into a game for the Marlins last year. He started the year on the disabled list. Bordick. That's the inning. 14-4 Oakland at the end of 7. It'll be Sierra, McGuire, and Steinbach when we come back. The 8th inning. Coming up now, a hockey baseball doubleheader on Wednesday night. The Philadelphia Flyers versus the New Jersey Devils, Game 3 in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Stanley Cup playoffs, followed by Major League Baseball. It'll be Bobby Bonilla, the New York Mets. They're out west right now. Barry Bonds and the San Francisco Giants. The Giants atop the National League West. That's following the hockey at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, right here on ESPN. Numerous changes for the Orioles. Kevin Bass stays in the game to play left field after hitting for Anderson. Manny, that's Leo Gomez now at third base for the Orioles. And Manny Alexander has moved into short, replacing Cal Ripken, as Ruben Sierra takes strike 1. And Jeff Manto has moved from third base over to first base. So basically what's happened is that Ripken and Palmeiro have been given the rest of the night off. Sierra with a count of 1-1. It was Sierra who hit the home run in the 6th inning that broke a 3-3 tie. It started a 7-run inning. Benitez 95 miles an hour on that fastball on the Jug's gun. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Oakland's had 2 record nights for 2 of its players. Craig Paquette with 7 RBIs, including a grand slam, 2 homers. Mike Bordick, 4 RBIs. There's Paquette. Bordick had never had more than 3 RBIs in the game. So here you've got Sierra, Baroa, McGuire, Steinbach, all these sluggers. And who are the guys who've done the most damage? Paquette and Bordick.
Well, that's sometimes what you need to break a losing streak. You have to get some help from some unsuspected sources.
Well, this looks like another infield hit. Barbery got it over there, but too late. So Sierra, who earlier had a home run, has an infield hit here, the 13th Oakland hit. And it will bring up Mark. Well, let's see, a pinch hitter is going to come up. Mike Aldrete is going to pinch hit for Mark McGuire.
Well, Sierra chops it to the right side. You see Benitez trying to get over there. Can't get there. Barbary had a long way to go. They're playing so deep that he had no chance of coming in and make the play in time to get Sierra.
They had a little rift in the Aldretti family during the replacement spring training because Mike's brother Rich, who used to be a minor league ball player, played as a replacement player for the Milwaukee Brewers this spring and played well. Rich Aldretti ended up setting the Brewers all-time spring training record for RBIs.
They count those?
Just in their own press guides. It's a good question, though.
Yes.
I mean, should it count?
No.
Because they ended up having a real spring training, although a shortened one afterward. But I think it caused a few problems for Mike with his brother Rich, you know, while he's out on strike. 2-1 the count. I think they've been fairly close, too. They operate a business together.
Well,
baseball hitting school, batting range. Could have been some interesting phone calls between the two of them. 2-1 the count to Aldretti. 2-2 now. Aldretti, kind of a handy player. Tony La Russa kind of resurrected his career. Plays first base, the outfield. Not a bad left-handed bat. And an experienced pinch hitter to come off the bench. He's 2 for 6 this year with a pinch hit home run. Oakland has hit 4 pinch hit home runs this year, which is rather amazing this early in the season, particularly in the American League. So they don't use pinch hitters that often anyway. 3-2 the count. La Russa says his dear old mom and pop are watching tonight down in Tampa. Says his dad is 83 and his mom is 81. They never miss Sunday night baseball. Reach for and foul back out of play.
I'm glad you brought that point up because I have been meaning to mention this all night. Jim Palmer, the Hall of Famer, former Baltimore Oriole pitcher, came by and he was telling us that his daughter Kelly got married yesterday and she's away on her honeymoon. Congratulations to Kelly.
Congratulations, yeah.
You notice
that in the Palmer household. That's ball 4 to Aldretti. That brings up Terry Steinbach. Now, we told you that last week in Oakland, Steinbach's not going to bat now. It's going to be a pinch hitter, Eric Helfand, instead. Steinbach did not hit a home run tonight, but he had that stretch last week in Oakland where he homered in the clutch 3 straight days. Oakland won all of those games. He hit one against Messina. With Baltimore in town, down 3-1 in the 7th, tied it. Hit one against this man, as we showed you. Armando Benitez hit a grand slam against him. In fact, here's a look. 3 straight days in the clutch. Not a bad pitch by Messina. That tied the game. Oakland eventually won it. The next day they were down by 1, and he hit a grand slam against Benitez. Then finally
started, stopped, and then Steinbach tags one.
They did it again against the Yankees. They were down 3-2 on that 3rd one, and it was a 2-run homer in the 8th inning, and they won 4-3. Now that's some clutch hitting, 3 straight days, Joe. You don't see that too often.
No, I mean, it was an exceptional streak there for Terry Steinbach.
There's a long one, but foul off the bat of Eric Helfand. There's Terry Steinbach. It's interesting here in Baltimore, in the ball game the year before last, Cal Ripken got hit with a pitch, and Cal was a little upset. He thought that Steinbach had called for the pitch in retaliation for a pitch thrown by an Oriole pitcher in the first half of the inning. Cal went down to first base, having been hit by the pitch, and then it just so happened that there was a subsequent base hit, and Cal tried to score. There was a play at the plate, and he literally knocked Steinbach out with the ferocity of his arrival. Steinbach had to leave the game and go to the hospital. He had a mild concussion. And it was interesting because Ripken's got the consecutive game streak and kind of put himself in harm's way. I mean, Steinbach is not a guy that is easily moved from the home plate area. Two to Helfand, and that is low. By the way, with Ripken out of the lineup now, during that stretch of 2,043 consecutive games played, tonight is the 54th time that he did not play the entire game. Popped up foul and out of play. 3-2 the count to Helfand. 2 men on, nobody out in the 8th inning. Ripken in that one stretch had 5 straight years he played every inning of every game. The game when they finally took him out of the lineup, his dad was the manager.
Yes.
And the Toronto Blue Jays in their old ballpark had set a major league record hitting 10 home runs in a game against the Orioles. And his dad did something very shrewd, Cal Sr. He made a headline, at least here in Baltimore was a headline, that preempted the Blue Jays record-setting night because he took Cal out of the game. First time in 5 years that he had not played every inning of the game. Juan Bonilla was the man who replaced him. The Orioles lost that game 18-3. And that's strike 3. Helfand goes down. And that's out number 1 here in the 8th inning. Don't forget now, SportsCenter is coming up. Ordinarily, it would already be in progress. The Pacers and Magic Game 7, the Red Wings Blackhawks in the NHL, and the Sunday conversation with the man. All of a sudden they're talking about him with Russell and Jabbar, Chamberlain, Hakeem Olajuwon. Well, and they're not talking about because he's a tall guy, you know. I mean, they're talking about because he did amazing things in pressure situations in big games.
Well, if you watched him play in the last 3 series, you know that he is special. He is a special player.
Brett Gates, the hitter, single and a double and a walk. He scored 3 times. 1 ball, 1 strike to Gates. 2 on, 1 out in the 8th inning. Now, Bill Russell's a good friend of yours. You ever talk to Russell about Olajuwon?
Yeah, he called me the other night and told me how good he played. Yeah? In the 5th game the other night. He said he put on a show. He said it was beautiful. I didn't get a chance to see that game, but Russell did, and he talked about him for about 5 minutes on the phone.
Man, that's high praise indeed.
Yes, it was.
I'd say that's about as good as it could get for Hakeem to get praise from Russell. 2-2 to Gates. Did he make any comments about how you know, Shaquille has played down there?
Well, I think if I remember correctly, he worked with Shaquille for a while when he first came out of college.
Down on strikes goes Brett Gates for Benitez with his 2nd straight strikeout. 2 down in the 8th inning. Oakland ahead 14-4, and the batter will be Scott Brocious.
Well, Benitez, when he throws this fastball up around the letters, you're not going to hit it. 95 miles an hour. That's an excellent fastball, and you noted earlier that he threw awfully hard. But I don't think that kid there worries about the speed. I think he says, well, I can handle anything he could throw.
I could have hit him.
Yeah.
Here's Scott Brocious. He pops it up, foul, and out of play. 0-1 the count to Brocious. 2 men on, 2 men out in the 8th inning. The A's with 2 in the 5th, 7 in the 6th, 4 in the 7th to lead 14-4 over Baltimore. Craig Paquette on deck. Really bad. I felt bad enough when I gave the lineups tonight. I called him Tom Paquette.
And this guy's set a record tonight for himself.
7 RBIs, a grand slam. Man, a night to remember.
And he'll just remember you called him Tom.
Well, don't tell him.
All right, I won't.
I made humble apologies. There's Paquette. Craig Paquette. He lost his job this year. You know, he's not even playing. Brocious has won the 3rd base job away from him. And Paquette in there because of the injury to Ricky Henderson. Playing left field tonight. He had been the A's 3rd baseman there for a while.
And Ricky may be back in the next day or so.
If Ricky doesn't play tomorrow, if he's not available to play, if he's not ready, La Russa said tonight that he'll go on the disabled list.
But would you take Paquette out of the lineup now to put Ricky back in tomorrow? Is the question. No, I mean, or would you give Ricky another day?
Brocious down on strikes. Benitez ends up striking out the side here in the 8th inning. 14-4, Oakland ahead. We go to the last of the 8th. 14-4, the Athletics lead the Orioles. We go to the last of the 8th inning here from Oriole Park in Baltimore. Don't forget now, right after the ball game, stay tuned for SportsCenter. All the day's highlights. That's SportsCenter, and then baseball tonight after SportsCenter. Stay tuned. Changes now for the Athletics. Mike Aldrete stays in to play first base. He pinch hit for McGuire. Geronimo Berroa moves to right field now. He'd been the DH. Sierra retires, and that means the pitcher will have to hit if it ever comes up. Helfand stays in to catch. He had hit for Steinbach. And the new pitcher is Rick Honeycutt. And he would hit in Sierra's number 3 spot in the order, which is due up 5th in the next go-round. They still have hitters on the bench they could use if they wanted to. Although Honeycutt just might want to hit if he has the chance. Guys, they usually like to hit, don't they?
I don't think Tony La Russa would let him hit in this situation, though.
Too risky.
Yes.
The only man he has available to pinch hit is got Stan Javier. And, of course, Ricky Henderson. And with the 10-run lead, I doubt he would use Ricky. But he might use Javier. Hobbling a little bit himself. Rick Honeycutt, the veteran. He'll come on to face Leo Gomez, the Manny Alexander, and then we'll see. Baines due up 3rd of the inning. Cal Ripken out of the ball game along with Palmeiro for the Orioles. So here's Honeycutt to face Gomez. Gomez was the everyday third baseman. He still end up being the everyday third baseman for the Orioles, but he got off to a terrible start. Hitting only .207, no homers, only 1 double, and 2 runs batted in 58 at-bats. And he was not moving very well at third base either. High in the air, right center. Berroa gets an immediate chance, and he takes it 1 away. So Gomez is gone. Cal Ripken out of the ball game, but we talked to Cal for his and asked him about his recollections of the day that Earl Weaver in 1982 moved him from third to short.
There was no meeting that you were going to be a shortstop, or I'm going to make the move, or I'm thinking about making the move. It was just boom, you're going to be a shortstop. And so I took a few ground balls, and then Earl called me in, and I think it was his way of making me relax a little bit. He just said, if a ground ball's hit to you, I want you to catch it, get a good grip on the ball, take your time, and make a good throw to first base. If he's safe, he's only on first base. He's not on second. Which his way of saying, don't make any foolish errors. Don't try to do more than you're capable of doing. And if you just do what you're capable of doing, then everything will be fine.
And Weaver, of course, had a lot of opposition within the organization about making that move. They had a young fellow by the name of Bobby Bonner that they liked at short, and they had just traded Doug DeCinces to make room for Ripken at third. DeCinces went to California. 1 ball, 1 strike. This is Jim Henneman's article in the paper that day. I don't like the idea of doing anything that might foul the kid up, and I'm not going to let that happen. But I'd like to keep it like this at least through the weekend and see what happens. Just thinking about it for the weekend there, Joe. Well, now it's how many weekends later? 13 years later. 1 ball, 1 strike to Manny Alexander. And now 1 ball and 2 strikes. You know, I think a lot of people forget, too, how much Ripken struggled with the bat when he first came up. In his first go-around, he went 5 for 39 at the tail end of 1981. And then he got off to a terrible start in 82. At one point, he went 4 for 54 after getting 3 hits in opening day.
4 for 54 after 3 on opening day.
Yeah. So he was 7 for 59 for the year. Some people thought he should be sent back to the minors, that obviously he was not ready, needed more seasoning. Strike 3 call. In fact, here's a letter to the sports editor in May of '82 when he was in that slump. This is I'm upset about the Orioles playing Ripken as a full-time third baseman. He didn't hit well in the major leagues last year and is not hitting well this year. Well, Weaver, though, saw something that some people just didn't see. He stayed with Ripken. One of the ironies of that rookie season was that in one ball game on May the 3rd, Mike Moore, who of course is still around with the Tigers, and you know, 1982, Mike Moore threw very hard.
Yes.
He beamed Ripken. Chris Hoyle's up now, pinch hitting for Harold Baines. Taking ball 1, 2 down, nobody on. We're in the 8th inning. Well, he missed the next game after getting beamed, and then he got hot after the beating.
Kind of woke him up, huh?
I guess so. You'd think maybe just the opposite. But it was after the beating, and that's after all of the slumping, that he just got red hot. He had a two-hit, in fact, two-hit games in a row, and he hit 380 for the next 2 weeks. He also credits Reggie Jackson for having a hand in that. He had a talk with Reggie one day. Reggie was with the Angels at the time. Reggie gave him some good advice, and he said it kind of bolstered him a little bit, raised his spirits a bit. Because Reggie was at the top of his game at that time. So he relaxed a little bit, went on and won Rookie of the Year honors that year, 1982, with 28 homers and 94 driven in. Up the middle, and Hoyles has a pinch hit single. Hit number 9 for the Orioles, and that will bring up Jeffrey Hammonds. Here in Baltimore, the Baltimore Sun, the Baltimore paper, started a series today. They're going to have every Sunday a full page about each year of Ripken's career during the streak. And I'm sure we'll be seeing things like that all around the country as he draws nearer the Gehrig record. And that's ball 1 to Jeffrey Hammonds.
I think one of the things that happened in '82 was that was the year Ricky Henderson set the stolen base record.
Yeah, 130 steals that year.
So 1982.
Kind of a momentous year in baseball. Willie Stargell retired that
Pops.
year. One ball, 1 strike to count. Hammonds hitting .294, 1 hit today in 3 tries. And he cut the pitch. The glove of Brocious into left field. One hit very sharply by Hammonds. Brocious could not come up with it.
There have been some sharply hit balls tonight, John. I mean, around this whole ballpark, there have been some line drives, some hard ground balls. This one's hit pretty sharply. In the second hop, it kind of bounces up, and Brocious can't come up with it. He's played great at third in the past. That's the second error he's made since he's been here in Baltimore.
And that'll bring up Matt Noakes. 2 on, 2 out in the 8th inning. 14-4 Oakland ahead. By the way, we've been talking about Ripken a lot tonight. The streak that he's had. We had mentioned the game where his consecutive inning streak ended. He played every inning of every game for nearly 5 years. And Rick Vaughn, formerly public relations director for the Orioles, now with the Washington Redskins, obviously tuned in tonight, though, and still keeping us posted because he called in to mention that it was Ron Washington who replaced Ripken that day for the record.
I knew that.
Well, you didn't tell me.
Well, I didn't want to correct you on the air. I was going to tell you afterwards. I'm going to tell you after the game.
Oh, yeah.
When
it's
we're
too
walking
late.
back.
Yeah. It's too late now for you to correct it, but I just wanted to tell you. You screwed up tonight. Well, thanks, Joe. Thank you very much. Thanks to Rick Vaughn.
Yeah.
One of the best in the business. Likes to put those corrections in when we can still actually use them. 1 ball, 1 strike to Matt Noakes. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Also got a note here from Dave Stewart, and he wanted us to send along congratulations to his son Adrian, who got drafted by the San Diego Padres.
Right.
Congratulations to Adrian Stewart.
And I want to congratulate Jose Cruz Jr. for being the number 3 pick, I think, in the country.
Everybody likes him.
Yes.
Looks like he's going to be quite a player.
His father was one of the finest players. hitters to ever play this game. He didn't get a lot of credit for it because he played in Houston a lot of years, but man, could he hit, and especially with runners in scoring position.
2-2 the count to Noakes. 2 on, 2 out of the 8th inning. Oakland ahead 14-4. Gates over to Bordick, and that retires Hammonds and the Orioles here in the 8th inning. 14-4 Oakland. We head to the 9th. Paquette coming up. Oakland 14, the Orioles 4. Looks like a couple of streaks are going to end tonight. The Athletics 6-game losing streak, the Orioles 4-game winning streak. Now tomorrow, ESPN's coverage of the College World Series continues at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. A winner's bracket matchup between Tennessee and Cal State Fullerton. Todd Helton, who was the 8th pick in this year's Major League Draft just the other day, first round choice of the Rockies. Baseball America's Player of the Year, pitched a 4-hitter, a complete game yesterday. Helton will pitch for Tennessee in that one. Following will be Stanford and Clemson at 7:30 on ESPN 2. And also tomorrow on ESPN 7:30 Eastern, NHL playoff action, New Jersey and the Flyers. Game 2 of that series. The Flyers need a win
badly. My prediction for the NHL Finals, the New Jersey Devils and the Red Wings.
Red Wings and who?
And the Devils.
Here is Craig Paquette, who's had a huge night. 7 RBIs in the game for Paquette. Remember in 1969, Reggie Jackson had a 10 RBI game for the Athletics at Fenway Park. Oakland won the game 21-10. But Paquette more than doubled his personal RBI single game record. He'd never driven in more than 3 in a game until tonight. And that's a ball. 1 ball and 1 strike. Craig Paquette. The Sports Center comes up right after the ball game. Paquette hit 12 home runs for the Athletics the year before last. Became the third baseman. Had a poor batting average, though. He hit only .219. And then last year, lost the job. Scott Brocious has emerged, particularly with his strong glove work. But now what do you do? I mean, Paquette, that offense kind of hard to ignore. 7 RBIs in a game. Benitez misses inside ball 3. Paquette for the year now, including his 4 at-bats tonight, has had 48 at-bats, 3 homers, and 13 driven in. He's lifted his average up to .250 with his 2 home runs tonight. And Alexander, he got it. Man, safe at first is Paquette.
Man, that was some kind of throw from his back.
We got to see that one again.
Yeah, that was a big league attempt anyway. I mean, just to get to the ball was good, but he made a good throw from his back. Take a look at this play. Watch him all the way. He's isolated there. Nice diving stop. Now he stumbles. Now watch this. I mean, he makes a throw from his back.
There's Tomberlin. It's a high drive into right center. Hammonds takes it. I want to see that throw you're talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to see the throw too.
All right, well, here it is.
All right, here we go. Now he'll make the catch. Now watch, when he makes the catch, he stumbles. He would have liked to have just thrown it from standing, but watch, now he's on his back, on his knees, I guess, and fires to first base and fires a strike.
You know, if he had thrown it while he was still on his back, he might have gotten it.
Yeah, might have gotten him. He should have thrown it from his back instead of his knees. He raised up, took a little too long.
He just rolled over 1 time too many there. You don't want to roll over 3 times like that. There is ball 1 to Mike Bordick, also having a career night. It's 4 RBIs, his personal record. He and Paquette have combined for 11 runs batted in out of the 14 total for the Athletics. Ruben Sierra drove in the other 2. That one was kind of a wild one. Over to second base goes Paquette. Well, the Orioles bullpen tonight. Mike Oakquist, 1/3 of an inning, 3 runs, 3 hits allowed. Alan Mills, 0 innings, 3 runs, 3 hits allowed. Brad Pennington, 1 inning and 3 runs allowed. Benitez has given up the other run in 1 2/3 innings or something like that. There's the total for the bullpen tonight. Not very good. Plus, Oakquist gave up a run to Sid Fernandez's record. He inherited one of Sid's runners. Well, that's ball 4 to Morning. Second walk allowed by Benitez. 2 on, 1 out, and Geronimo Berroa comes out. Berroa is 1 for 5. Rick Honeycutt is out on deck. He might hit, Joe.
Looks like it.
A pitcher might hit. Alert the media, quick.
Yeah, well, no one's warming up in the... Yeah, someone is warming up in the A's bullpen.
Call Sports Center. Berroa. Well, this could be a double play. There's one. Barber to first, double play. Honeycutt looks shocked. Honeycutt can't believe it. Oh, man.
Well, he said he got close. Look at him. That's Barry Weinberg, the trainer.
Life is not fair. I was going to hit one out of here, too. We'll be back. 14-4, the Athletics now 3 outs away from ending their 6-game losing streak, and they're taking no chances as they bring in their great closer, Dennis Eckersley, to try and wrap it up here, and he just might do it. By the way, this is not a save situation. Eckersley got his 300th career save against the Orioles at the Oakland Coliseum back on May the 24th. At the final out with Rafael Palmeiro at the plate. Here it is. Ground ball to McGuire, and that was it. It had taken nearly 2 weeks for Eckersley to get that 300th save. There were just no save opportunities for nearly a 2-week period for him. And he got it more quickly than any other pitcher in history. Now he's up to 301. He got the next one the next day. And, of course, what sets Eckersley apart from everybody else on that list is that he had a whole other career as a starting pitcher in the major leagues.
Well, he has over 3,000 innings, and Lee Smith, by contrast, has about 1,100 and something.
So the Eck comes on, and truly in the spot here just to get some work. Although Peter Pasquarelli has advised us, Joe, that if the Orioles tie the game here in the 9th, Eckersley would lead off in the 10th.
Oh, okay. But he still wouldn't get a save if he saved it in the 10th.
That's right. Even if he gives up 9 runs here and then gets the side out, he would not get a save. Here is Jeff Manto. And Paquette. Paquette doing it all tonight. 1 away. Now Brett Barber, the hitter, and that's called a strike. Barber 0 for 3. Eckersley, when he got his 300th save, told us that one of the interesting things that had happened amongst his teammates, Brett Gates, just kind of idle conversation one day, said to him, "Hey, Eck, when you get your 300th save, are they going to stop the game?" Now think about that one for just
a second. Well, I'm a little embarrassed that he's a second baseman thinking like that.
Up the middle, base hit for Barbary. But I mean, the answer would be yes. When he gets the 300 save, they'll definitely stop the game. Yeah, the game will be over. And when he got number 301, they stopped the game then too.
What school, college you say he graduated from? Minnesota?
Yeah. Well, maybe he didn't graduate.
Oh, okay.
We have to check that one. Here is Curtis Goodwin, 1 for 4 tonight. And he takes a called strike. 14-4, the Athletics lead the Orioles. Last of the 9th inning. night to forget for the Orioles. Their 4-game winning streak coming down ingloriously here tonight. An embarrassing performance for the Orioles, and bringing up one of the problems the Orioles have had for much of this early season, which is a lack of strength from the bullpen. The bullpen came on in a 3-3 game in the 6th inning, and before the 6th inning was over, it was a 10-3 game, and by the time the 7th inning was over, it was a 14-4 game. In a 2-inning period, the bullpen saw Oakland put 11 runs on the board. Base hit for Goodwin. Well, he's had 3 games in the big leagues, Joe, and he's had 2 hits in all 3 of them.
Well, that should make his mom, Artelia, happy back in Oakland. I told her she's watching the game tonight with Ricky's mom, Bobby, so they should be happy. Well, Eckersley throws him a sinker away, and Goodwin goes the other way with it and lines it over shortstop. Good hitting there by Goodwin.
Now Kevin Bass. And that's a called strike. Eckersley got his 300th career save in his 499th relief appearance. Which is far fewer than anybody ever required to get that save before. Eckersley, by the way, has not pitched since Wednesday. And as you might expect, he's a guy who thrives on plenty of work. Sometimes when Eckersley works, I mean, he'll go in an inning and only throw 5 or 6 pitches. That's true. I pop up. Let Paquette have it. It's his night. Come on, guys. It's his night. Yeah. Well, they weren't going to let him have it. He just insisted on it.
Yeah, because it's the center fielder Tomlin was calling.
Next Sunday, join us. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. The Big Hurt, Frank Thomas and the White Sox. Juan Gonzalez, the Rangers. Mickey Templeton had 6 RBIs today for the Rangers, who beat Minnesota 7-2. We hope you'll join us from the ballpark in Arlington. Kenny Rogers should be due up that night for the Rangers. He's the hottest pitcher in the American League right now. Here is Leo Gomez, 0 for 1 tonight since coming up for Paul Merrill. Takes a strike. 14-4, the Athletics ahead. Well, a night to remember for Craig Paquette, 7 RBIs. Mike Bordick, 4 RBIs. Dave Stewart, 10 strikeouts. And for Oakland, the losing streak is history. And for the Orioles, from Phil Regan and Mike Flanagan, back to looking at the videotapes and trying to figure out what's wrong with these Orioles relievers. And for Sid Fernandez, 5 innings, 4 runs allowed. And for Sid, that's an encouraging sign.
Well, he threw the ball pretty well. I'm not so sure he didn't just run out of gas, but he gave up the home run to tie in the 4th and in the 5th, I'm sorry. And then he left after 1 hitter in the 6th, so he will get this loss, even though 6 runs were allowed after his runner reached base in the 6th inning.
He seemed to lose something there, yeah, by the 5th inning when he gave up the home run. He was like he'd gone as far as he could go. He threw 97 pitches while he was in there. But you know, that's also the story of his career, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times has he pitched 5 good innings, 6 good innings? But then he'd thrown so many pitches they had to get him out of there, and then he ended up not getting a win. 2-2 to Gomez. Well, Johnny Oates, the man who managed this Orioles club, we'll see him next Sunday in Texas. Now the manager of the Rangers, and the Rangers playing real well. Down the right field line. That's a fair ball. It rattles around. 2 runs are going to score. Barbary in. Goodwin in. A double for Gomez. And it's 14-6 for Oakland. Only the 3rd and 4th RBIs of the year for Gomez. Only his 2nd extra base hit. He's glad to get it.
Yes, he is. There's a little slider away, And he just reached out. He wasn't trying to do anything but slap it down the right field line. He finds the line, and he gets 2 RBIs on the play.
Now here is Manny Alexander. He's a very fine shortstop in the minor leagues. But, of course, the Orioles don't have any openings at shortstop in the big leagues. So
not for a while.
Last year, they moved him over to second base in AAA ball, which he resisted at first. But he's got the moves to end up being a very good second baseman, but he has so little experience there.
Well, you know, you talk about a guy not wanting to move. There is such a thing as a shortstop's mentality. You'd love to play shortstop, or you want to be center fielder. I think that's the reason he resisted the move.
He still talks about wanting to go back to shortstop. Well, here is Helfand, the catcher, and the ball game has ended. Oakland will head now to New York, a winner. The Orioles welcome Randy Johnson of the Mariners here tomorrow night, coming off a loss. 14-6 the final score for the Athletics over the Orioles. Sports Center coming up next. Now from Baltimore, John Miller for Joe Morgan. Thanks for watching. Good night, everyone.